Good morning. MI5 investigates Prince Andrew's links to China.
After the Duke allegedly received money from sources linked to a potential Communist Party spy.
Well, questions intensify as to the extent of their alleged friendship, with some worrying the spy was given access to other members of the royal family.
A Brexit betrayal? Leaked documents reveal the EU is demanding that Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
There are festive fears for the elderly as Age UK launches a campaign to show pensioners they're not alone this Christmas.
A female bishop claims that the next Archbishop of Canterbury needs to break up the old boys' club following Justin Welby's sensational resignation. We're asking, is it time for a woman to be the head of the church?
The Christmas countdown is on for fans of Gavin and Stacey ahead of the show's finale.
I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering.
I really didn't.
You're damaging my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there.
Well, what else might catch your fancy on the telly this Yuletide? Or do you believe there's no place for watching telly on Christmas Day? We'll be debating that a bit later on.
Now listen to this. I sleep badly and I don't digest food well. Do I lose my mind sometimes? Yes, those, the chilling words of Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola ahead of this weekend's Manchester derby. In cricket, meanwhile, England take a huge step towards achieving a stunning whitewash in New Zealand. We'll have updates throughout the morning.
For a gloomy few days in the south and the east, much brighter weather turns up later today. The same can't be said towards the northwest. Full details on the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Lots of people getting excited about the whole Gavin and Stacey thing. I never watched it. I missed that as a sort of...
It was good.
It was a phenomenon.
It must have been good because everybody goes on about it, don't they?
It was good. It was good. And I was round at my sister-in-law's yesterday, and she gave me the itinerary for Christmas.
Oh, and Gavin and Stacey is part of it.
Based it around that show. It's so important in their household. Wow. Yeah, I like it. I have a passing interest in it, but they've gone further. They're scheduling Christmas around it, and I don't seem to feature much on the list, which is
funny, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, we did watch recently Fat Friends, which actually most of the cast were in. So it was before Gavin and Stacey, but most of them were in Fat Friends.
Yeah,
and that was a good show, all about a dieting club. It spurred me on.
And I binged on Day of the Jackal over the last couple of days.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's not worth the time.
The new one.
The new one.
It's not. No.
They've taken a very good book originally and a very good old movie, and they've turned it into a 10-part serial. And after a while, you think, I'm just being had here.
Yeah.
You know how you get that feeling that they spin things out for far too long, and they give backstories to characters that aren't even important, and everything else is about the scenery and the set. Yeah. You think, I've had enough now, so I didn't even bother watching it. I skipped.
How many episodes did you get?
I skipped 6, 7 and 8 and 9 and just watched the last episode to see how it ended and got bored with that too. All I can say is Eddie Redmayne is brilliant, as you can imagine, but what they've done is just, they've bought one big star and they've eked out a 10-episode storyline where it didn't need to be.
Do you know what they do? This is what annoys me slightly about the big star, when you get these actors and you go, God, such a fabulous actor and all of it. And yeah, it's actually, they might be quite a good actor, but it's all about how it's edited and what's done in post-production to whether a movie is good or bad, not whether the actor's any good or not. You can make a bad actor look brilliant.
But he is... I mean, there's no doubt he's good, but the scripting is... all I'm saying is the first episode is brilliant. They've spent the money on the first episode, and it pulls you in.
And then gone, we've got
and then
money
you think,
left
I've been watching this for hours and it hasn't got any more interesting, so you just give up in the end. What a shame.
Oh, well, if you've got any hot tips for what to watch...
Or what to avoid.
Indeed, what to avoid. GB News, no.
You're one of these people who believes that you shouldn't be watching telly on Christmas Day anyway.
No.
I remember you saying that, actually.
Yeah, don't watch it. Don't watch it. It's family time. It's family...
You watch it with your family, though, don't you?
No.
Well,
no, we've never done it on Christmas Day, and never. These people who say, it's 4 o'clock, let's put the telly on, whatever. No.
About the Queen's speech?
Yeah, watch the Queen's speech.
Yeah.
But that's 5 minutes, isn't it?
Yes.
King's Speech, sorry.
King's Speech.
And you have to watch Breakfast in the morning, or at least have it on, because it's Patrick and Emily doing the breakfast show on. It's not you, don't worry.
I'm on there.
No. Are you on?
I am indeed, yeah.
You are, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Too disappointed.
Yeah.
We'll have you on in the living room. We might not listen to a word you say, but we'll definitely watch you and join in.
Right, thanks.
No,
Yeah.
The TV, apart from the King,
Yeah.
TV doesn't go on.
Is that right?
Apart from, obviously, Chippy.
Yeah.
To be said.
Well, hang on, that is the telly on then, isn't it?
Well,
To put
yes,
you
but
on the spot.
Yes, but I'm contractually obliged to say it.
Yeah, I see.
Doesn't mean it will actually be going on.
No, it will be. It'll be.
I'm bringing in some soup on Christmas Day.
It's the newly married dream couple, isn't it?
Is it?
Emily and Patrick. Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
So they're spending their first Christmas morning in a TV studio.
Yeah, well,
With Aidan McGee.
They'll live to regret it. Right, anyway, should we crack on? Oh, forgive me, this... Now, here's the thing. Why don't they make quality items anymore? Here, these clips for our wires used to be metal. Can you do me up?
Yeah.
And they're now these plastic rubbish that keep popping off.
I've got a metal one.
They used to be like... Have you got an old bulldog clip? You have?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, well...
You take your eyes off it, that's fine.
Honestly, this plastic rubbish. Anyway, it's probably from China.
Yes. Talking of which, this is the top story at the moment, and honestly, it boggles the mind. Chinese money linked to Prince Andrew is now under investigation by MI5 as more details emerge about the embattled Duke's connection, apparently, to an alleged spy.
Well, it's believed Prince Andrew invited the man in question, who's been called a close confidant, to the palace, to Buckingham Palace. Their relationship apparently goes back to 2012.
Now, Prince Andrew has said now that he ceased all contact with the businessman in question and denied discussing anything of a sensitive nature.
Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace have claimed it has no power to scrutinise the Duke's finances.
Well, we're joined now by the former head of Royal Protection, Di Davis. Good morning, Di. I mean, I bet your eyebrows raised when you heard about this. And what's going on, do you think?
Well, a very good morning, Anne. And I like the Jackal professionally. I thought it was very interesting how people can be assassinated. But back to the subject, very interesting. Yes, my eyebrows did go up, but frankly, over the years, nothing this man does causes my eyebrows to go up very much. And indeed, it is most concerning. And there are so many questions arising out of this that if indeed it's true, MI5 are investigating. I said yesterday on one of your colleagues' programme, this should be done, and so should all his finances. I think we're entitled to know, as we were paying him to be our trade ambassador, so-called, who he dealt with, who paid him, along with others from Epstein and so many of these dictators and others that this man seems so fond of dealing with. No, this is a very serious matter, and it requires a proper, structured investigation into him and some of his advisors.
I mean, how do these things work, or have they worked over the past decade or so? Has Prince Andrew just been able to sort of connect, hook up with anybody he likes without them being vetted?
Well, that's a very good question, and clearly I don't know how Prince Andrew went about for the last 20 years or more. Clearly, he has an extremely bad advisory group, if indeed he relies on those. But I suspect he goes where he wants to go. And clearly, the backdrop to this was that you and I were paying him for many, many years. And indeed, as a member of the royal family, we were paying for him anyway. But what I'm trying to say is he's used, I suspect, and I probably would allege that he's used his backdrop of being our ambassador to actually ensure that he has contacts. And clearly it shows bad judgment yet again. Somebody asked me yesterday, is he naive? Well, how often can you be so naive and to have so many bad people close to you, so close that you entertain them at Buckingham Palace and James's, and probably took him up to Balmoral as well once the investigation comes back. It absolutely stinks, in my opinion, and it's a time we had a look at where does he get his money from, how many bungs did he receive over the years, and so on and so forth. The royals won't discuss it now, but somebody should be discussing it, and I think it's right that we have scrutiny.
Why would China be interested in him?
Well, China has been trying to infiltrate members of, not as it appears now, royalty, but also MPs. You would only have to have Duncan Smith on your program to realize how extensive they are. And we have literally thousands of Chinese individuals at universities and in organizations here. They are bent on intelligence. They thrive on intelligence, and they thrive on getting useful idiots, as some people describe them. And clearly, I suspect he was amongst those that they've tried to infiltrate for whatever information. But once they got you, it's a bit like blackmail. Once you've taken that golden shilling, they've got you. I know well with Russia, they do exactly the same. I know of people in the House of Lords who were approached by the Russians, and I've no doubt the Chinese as well. They are experts at seducing men and women to gather intelligence information. And they're willing to wait a long time, as far as I'm aware, until they need you. But once they've got you, once they've hooked you, like a blackmailer, they've got you.
Does that mean once they hook you, you know you've been hooked? I mean, because that begs the question, you know, has Prince Andrew been bumbling along without knowing anything about this, or has he been at some point properly put on the hook and is aware of what's going on?
Well, one simply doesn't know, and again, what's coming out now that he didn't know, and as soon as he was advised and so on, he had nothing to do with it. We don't know when whoever advised him not to have contact with this, but it's clearly he let a gentleman by the name of Hampshire, I believe, actually induce firms in China. And I suspect, if the pattern of his behavior, I suspect, is that he would be rewarded. Now, if you're naive enough to think that they do it just because you are a royal and they just like you, then you are extremely naive. But somebody somewhere should have been watching him. And there are questions to be asked, I think, of the security services. What were they doing? Were they asleep at the wheel? Where a former senior member of the royal family was cavorting. But this has happened, you know. It's happened with so many dodgy people over the last 20 or more years. Then surely somebody could have got a grip of this man and said, you know, enough is enough. Didn't he learn any lessons from Epstein? Hasn't he learned any lessons from selling his house to dodgy dictators? It beggars belief, the naivety, but also the fact that he was allowed to get away with it for so long. There has to be an inquiry. What money was he given or received by the Chinese and anyone else over the years?
And, of course, you have to ask who is paying for him to stay at Royal Lodge, because we understand that Buckingham Palace has said they've got no power and no right to quiz him about his finances.
Well, it does seem extraordinary to me, but there is a huge, extraordinary veil drawn over anything to do with royals in terms of their finances. So that doesn't surprise me. Clearly, he is a member of the royal, was a member of the royal family, still is in real theory, you know, and for them to wash their hands now and say, well, I was upstairs collecting fares while all this was going on, as the saying goes, beggars belief as well. Somebody needs to get a grip of this. A very famous author, Andrew Lowney, has been is writing a book about him, and I know, because I've been in contact with him, the difficulty on finding any information about this man and his associates meets a brick wall. No, it's time the veil was unleashed, as it were, and we start to find out what on earth has been going on, because he is a senior member, or was, of the royal family. He's done more harm, as I said yesterday, to the royal family than Oliver Cromwell and his associates put together. It needs sorting once and for all, I think.
OK, Di, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Meanwhile, in response, the Duke of York's links to the alleged Chinese spy, Prince Andrew's office has said in a statement, the Duke of York followed advice from Her Majesty's government, His Majesty's government, and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels, with nothing of a sensitive nature ever discussed. He is unable to comment further on matters relating to national security.
Well, the Chinese embassy here in the UK said some individuals in the UK are always eager to fabricate baseless spy stories targeting China. Their purpose is to smear China and disrupt normal exchanges between Chinese and British personnel.
So there you are.
What else would they say?
Well, exactly, and no doubt we will find out more because the journalists are digging away at this. I think there will be more to come out.
Yes. Right, now leaked documents have revealed the European Union is set to demand that Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
Another key dispute will include the freedom of movement among students, for instance, with Brexiteers fearing that these plans actually betray the 2016 referendum.
Well, it comes as the Prime Minister has been desperately attempting to reset relations with the EU.
Well, we're joined now by former political correspondent Peter Spencer. Peter, very good morning to you. Here we go again. Do you think Keir Starmer is trying to reverse Brexit?
He's not trying to reverse Brexit, but he's certainly, the word is, reset relations. And it has a huge urgency because of the fact that there is uncertainty and anxiety over security in subsequent to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and also with the election of Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States, who has threatened to pull the rug out from under NATO if NATO countries don't spend more on defence. So there is a huge urgency about this. When it comes to the EU's, you use the word, the Telegraph uses the word demands, what they are is negotiating positions. And there's quite a lot happening on this front. That the Chancellor last week met her European counterparts for the first time that a British Chancellor has done so since Brexit. And indeed in the spring, Keir Starmer will be going to the first EU-UK summit since Brexit, and he will indeed be spending time with Ursula von der Leyen and the various other top people in it. Now, when it comes to what it is that's on the table to be discussed, fishing is certainly is one of the issues. There's also safety of animal products, but the big one is the potential freedom of movement in regard to young people who wish to study, British people who wish to study abroad, and European people who wish to study in this country. It's quite interesting. There was a survey actually last week which suggested that a majority of people who voted leave would be up for a certain degree of freedom of movement. So I think that leaves Starmer with a little bit more freedom of movement than he might have expected. And indeed, interestingly, and as an aside, my latest novel centres on a young woman who's about to go to university and is desperately anxious about the fact that she will not be able to study abroad because of Brexit. And so she, in her feisty little way, decides, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to reverse Brexit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say this isn't Keir Starmer trying to reverse Brexit, but I mean, you look at all the details on this, you know, changing some of the fishing rules, UK in UK waters, changing freedom of movement stuff. I mean, it's circumventing Brexit, if not reversing it.
Well, I mean, I think it has to be acknowledged that when Boris Johnson said we have a deal which is oven ready, he manifestly did not. He sold the nation a bit of a pup, and it has left us with a whole range of different problems, one of which I might add is that this very week we've had a whole lot of top builders saying, look, it's all very well for the government to say we're going to we're going to make sure that 1.5 million new homes are constructed, and to which the building companies say, oh, who's actually going to do the work then? And one of the problems that they face is the fact that they have labour shortages stemming from, oh, surprise, surprise, Brexit. And so that is another example of where freedom of movement, the lack of freedom of movement, has actually curtailed British opportunity and British prosperity. And that, again, is something which is going to have to be addressed. That's okay for the government to say, right, we're going to have lots of apprenticeships for new builders, new British-born builders. But actually, how long does that take? And how soon does he want to start building the new houses? There's an awful lot of problems here which have to be sorted out as quickly as possible.
Well, we'll leave it there for the moment, but as you say, it's going to be sorted out. It's going to make headlines probably for months, if not years to come. Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Peter.
I have real concerns about this, because whether you supported Brexit or not, it's back to this blooming old argument of whether you supported it or not, there was a democratic decision.
Yeah, it was.
And therefore, shouldn't that be carried through? Well, of course, as Peter quite rightly says, the government says, well, we're not reversing Brexit, we're not going back into the EU, we're not, but we are doing, actually, all these other things, which basically means we may as well be back in.
But what worries me, then, is we're going to have to pay a price for that, because, I mean, look at the attitude of the rest of the European Union when we did pull out. It was very much as though they wanted to punish us. Why would they indulge us by giving us the bits back that we want? You know, like freedom of movement for students or whatever.
But why
they will want us to pay a price.
Why do we even want freedom of movement for students?
Some students do.
Some students do, but it's got to be the minority. It's got to be a minority. So we've got plenty of students who go in and out of the United States. There's not freedom of movement there, so there's got to be ways around it for the very few who want to do it. I don't know. I just think it's extraordinary, all this sort of thing. And
I'm just worried they'll pull back the bits they sound what they want, what Labour has always wanted, I guess, and we'll have to pay quite a steep price for it in certain ways. Don't quite know how, but deals will be done that we may not be entirely happy about.
I just think, what damage does it do to the democratic process in this country if something happens and a few years later it's just all...
Yeah, it was a referendum.
All but reversed in everything but name. Then what's the point? How do we have any faith in anything that we vote for anymore?
Well, we're asking you your opinion, as ever. And in our poll of the day, we're asking, will the government's economic policy avoid recession? That's an interesting one. We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so do make sure to stay tuned. Final result announced later on, of course, in Nana Akwe's show. For all our latest polls and news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Yeah, recession. Well, we're nowhere near a recession at the moment. It'd have to be 2 consecutive quarters, doesn't it? And we're 2 months in. So
nevertheless, there are headlines today that won't please Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, so another 4 months of negative growth to see if we enter recession. So we'll have to see. Anyway, now to something a bit more cheery for you. One of the nation's favourite sitcoms, Gavin and Stacey, is back on our screens on Christmas Day.
Yes, fans have been treated to a special preview of the episode, so shall we take a look?
Right, that's your lot. You'll have to walk the rest. Mini golf that way, Marco's over there.
Is there any way we could be done?
No, I'm done. That'll be 75 quid.
What? But we've only been on a couple of minutes.
Oh, love. I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering.
I really didn't.
You're damaging
mean
my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there. You got Apple Pay? I got Bluetooth in my bra.
Well, Stephanie Tetch's singing away to that. I don't get it,
Gosh,
Stephanie.
I absolutely love it. And we've only got... How many days have we got? 11 days before Gavin and Stacey fans are taken out of their misery. 5 years ago, we were all left on a cliffhanger when Nessie proposed to Smithy, and we don't know what's happened since. And Gavin and Stacey is like friends, and people love the chemistry between these characters. And I think we've been following them almost, God knows now, almost 20 years, just seeing this lovely sitcom take a life of its own. And I think the chemistry between all of them is what makes people so fascinated. When it was on air 5 years ago, it had 12 million viewers. That has been the highest.
That is pretty good.
That is high for a non-sporting event.
Yeah. Talking of sporting events, I mean, Aidan was saying earlier that his family are are building their Christmas Day around the Gavin and Stacey episode. It's that important.
Because people have been waiting 5 years to see what happens next for these characters. Before that, it was 9 years. So when you grow this kind of anticipation to see how things are going to end, people are definitely going to tune in on Christmas Day. James Corden has said that they've thrown everything at it to make it a satisfactory watch, but they said that people might be surprised. It might not end the way people think it should.
Oh, dear. Does that mean it could be another cliffhanger that never gets answered?
Oh, maybe, or it might end up on Netflix. They are trying to say that this is going to be the grand finale, but it's never the end. You can always see that there's more potential for it to come back.
But it's about family, isn't it? It's about relationships, and there isn't necessarily an end to that.
Well, that's the thing, and as well, I think TV, in a way, has lost, like, when it comes to good things that programmes people can watch and develop a cult-like following for. There's not many of that anymore. So with Gavin and Stacey, it's one that connects with the nation, and I think to have it on Christmas Day is pretty smart of the BBC.
It strikes me when you... Because it's the two characters, Gavin and Stacey, aren't the characters that we hear about in all the trailers and all the rest of it.
Well, they've almost taken a back seat now. Initially, it was all about them, but, you know, it's written by Ruth Jones and James Corden, and, you know, they've kind of boosted up their characters in the show, so I'm not surprised that people are more gravitated to their characters than the rest. But the thing is, when you watch all of the characters together, you just love seeing the chemistry that they've got.
I must say, just from that tiny little clip, you can hear that the script is good.
Yeah, and it's up to date. You know, stuff that she's talking about, you know, you're triggering my mental health and all this kind of stuff. And I think this is what we need on Christmas Day. We need some good, heartwarming TV shows.
So you approve of watching television?
I totally approve. I love it. I love it. I think it actually brings the family together. Like, I don't watch EastEnders mostly during the year, but on Christmas Day, I want to watch what the story is.
Really? Do you?
Yes.
Because they'll do something special.
Because it's special. That's what makes Christmas TV special.
But I can't imagine your mum and dad wanting to...
Oh, my gosh, they love EastEnders now. They've been converted,
I was trying to describe to one of my sons the other day about Dirty Den in EastEnders. Didn't Den ditch Angie on Christmas Day?
That's the thing. So even if you don't watch it, you can kind of keep up with what's going on Xmas specials. Yeah. They got it right.
Oh, well,
become a Gavin and Stacey convert, Stephen.
Oh, well, I
won't go wrong.
I think I've missed the boat a little bit on that.
I've back-watched, or whatever it is, you know, I've watched... binge-watched the old episodes, and it is good. I mean, there's no doubt. You get pulled in.
And that's the thing, I think, for me at the moment, I'm just watching British TV, and it feels like there's none of those good heritage shows anymore. So when we've got these ones, it's good to support.
Heritage shows.
Heritage shows.
Probably heritage, Anne.
I'm sure I am.
Definitely am. Right, Stephanie, thank you. We'll see you later on. Time for the weather with Aidan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Metalvis for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days, it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Today I am joined by documentary maker Daniel Wing, who is still trying to find out who murdered his mother 30 years on. He's also created a documentary called Who Murdered You, Mum? Daniel, can you just tell us the story of what happened to your mother, what you know?
So when I was 1 year old in 1992, my mum Tina was murdered. My dad went on trial for it and was acquitted. And the case went unsolved and has been unsolved for 32 years. My nan, who raised me, amazing woman, passed away sadly 2 years ago, and that kind of sent me on a quest for answers.
So your documentary then, what are you hoping to achieve with it?
I am fighting for justice for my mum. I have had a meeting with the police and they are looking to see what they have and are looking to reopen investigation if they can find new and compelling evidence. What's interesting now is speaking to other families who are actually going through the trauma and experience of murder.
Yeah.
My mum didn't get the opportunity to be a mum. What would my life have been? I'm now 33 years old with no parents. And it's that kind of thing. It's a very, I guess, lonely journey in what I'm experiencing. That's why I wanted to make this film, because I hadn't had the opportunity to be able to grieve my mother and know who she was. And that was really what this journey was about. It was about finding out who she was and being able to grieve. Everyone had the opportunity, although terrible circumstances, to be able to go to the funeral and have that moment, and I never had that opportunity.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:33. Now, the bishop who called for Justin Welby to resign as Archbishop of Canterbury has now said his successor should break up the boys' club.
Yes, the Reverend Helen Ann Hartley is hoping that the next leader will end what she describes as the dysfunction embedded in the Church's leadership.
So, is it time for a woman to take over the Church of England?
Let's talk to Reverend Matthew Innocent, who joins us now. Good morning and happy Christmas.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is an interesting thought, isn't it? Why shouldn't the Archbishop of Canterbury be a woman? And actually, if it were, would that have some sort of redeeming quality to the mess that appears to have gone on before?
I gave evidence at the independent inquiry into child sex abuse, and I infamously said at the time that the Archbishops of Canterbury and York were not fit for office. And I was laughed at by people within the church, and I proved to be correct. John Sentamu, who was Archbishop of York, is now barred from ministry, and Justin Welby has had to resign, both over safeguarding failures. I totally agree with Bishop Helen Ann. It's time for radical change now in the church.
But how do you... I mean, there is an issue, isn't there? Because over here, of course, most people have no problems at all with women priests. It's, you know, we've evolved, we've come to accept it. But for the worldwide Anglican communion, of which the Archbishop of Canterbury would still be head, that could be problematic, couldn't it?
That would be for the church to work out and work through, wouldn't it? I don't see any great rush of bishops coming forward to act with any integrity apart from Bishop Helen Ann. And my recommendation will be for her. The worldwide Anglican Communion would have to work that through. And those who cannot accept the ordination of women throughout the world, you know, they have to address that. And in effect, she would become their mother-in-law. And they would have to work that through. Yeah.
It'd be a mistake, though, wouldn't it, to choose the next archbishop purely on gender, because that implies that women are good and men are bad, almost, doesn't it? It should only be applied in terms of, you know, merit for the job and whether they're a thoroughly decent human being.
Absolutely. It's the right person for the job, whether that would be a woman or whether it would be a man, and it should be, gender should not come into it. But looking at the possible candidates, if you like, that may be coming forward, there is only one real candidate, isn't there, at the moment, and that is Bishop Helen Ann. The bullying behaviour by the Archbishops of Canterbury and York towards her and the isolation she's been left in by all the other bishops are showing exactly their behaviour. Are they fit for the office, men or women? I don't see women rushing forward. I don't see men rushing forward.
But if, I mean, look, I don't know about the allegations of bullying or anything else. However, if she is a lone figure and the rest of the bishops within the Church of England don't seem to be backing her, well, how's she going to lead a Church of England?
Well, if you want to take it on a theological thing, I think the disciples deserted Jesus at the moment of truth, didn't they? This is a fundamental moment of truth for the Church of England. And if they desert somebody who speaks for the truth of what's really going on, well, then that's more on them than on her. Leadership sometimes needs to call out the wrong, and that is what she is doing.
Yeah, so what you're calling for is somebody who is not only good, the right person for the job, but actually brave enough to take on what will be an absolute backlash, because there will be... Because, I mean, you must have heard, as I did, the Justin Welby's farewell speech in the House of Lords, which showed to me that he had no idea, really, of why he was paying the price he was paying. He just sort of said, a head had to roll and mine was the easiest head to roll. He didn't seem to be contrite or accept any blame. In other words, maybe there are others like him who just don't understand what went wrong in the first place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. His speech was absolutely atrocious. And unfortunately, that's replicated throughout the church. As I said, the other bishops are not coming forward. They're not speaking out for the truth. You know, there's been comments recently about the abuse scandal online. There was somebody who put the other day about the John Smythe things, or it was only a few smacked bottoms. They just don't get what's going on. In my own case, I've had social media backlash for years. I once had a priest put on social media to me, so, well, I won't use the word he used, but so you were, as a child, be grateful somebody found you attractive.
Oh goodness.
And that's the attitude of the church. Now that the church itself is still all the old boys club, I would say that, you know, and some of the ladies, bishops, still have not quite as strong an attitude, but they're not going to speak out for truth. True leadership needs a good, strong voice who is willing to challenge.
All right.
Helen Ann's the only one for that.
Reverend Innocent, got to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. Good to see you.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning. It's time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to become our biggest ever winner with an incredible 50 grand in tax-free cash. It's an amazing sum of money, could make a real difference to you, couldn't it? Here's how to take part.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport. Agents here. Morning.
Good morning to you both. Good to see you.
Should we talk diet and sleep?
Yeah, Pep Guardiola, his tummy's playing up. And that's why the team isn't doing so well.
Well, the team's playing up, that's for sure. I mean, this is the worst run in his managerial career. And bear in mind, that's in excess of 800 games since 2008. 1 win in 10 matches. The third match of that sequence was a defeat in Portugal against Sporting Lisbon. The manager that day of Sporting Lisbon is now the manager of Man United, who they play tomorrow. He's just given an insight into his life and the reason he's suffering so badly. But I don't know if you saw couple of weeks ago, there was a big nail mark on his, and there was blood coming out of it, and everyone thought he had a rumble with the players in the dressing room. But no, he said that it's his nails. He said, I did them on my nose. That's what he said yesterday. I'd actually put my nail into my nose, and that's how frustrated he was feeling. And this is the quote as well. He said, I have bad days, I mess up a lot, and rudeness makes me nervous. Do I lose my mind sometimes? Yes. I sleep badly, and I don't digest food very well. I'd have a made meal in the daytime and just soup in the evening. And he said, if my state of mind is ugly, then it's ugly. I think he's really struggling at the moment. I know he earns £20 million a year, and it probably helps. It's probably bonus incentivised as well. But he really needs a win tomorrow, I can assure you of that. And he also said that it's very strange that we're playing Man United, and one of the two teams, we're in a situation where neither of the two teams is actually going for anything. United haven't really hit the ground running since their new manager took over. And look, it's still going to be a major event. It's 4:30 tomorrow. But even so, it's an odd situation for a Manchester derby to be in, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, it is. Look, I know there's lots to cover in the world of sport, Aidan, but we haven't got time.
We'll go into more depth later now,
Yes,
because it's a good thing to get into.
OK.
All right, thanks very much indeed.
Right, do stick with us, because we'll be back in a couple of moments with the newspapers.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing, and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood, that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate it. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It says joy.
Oh.
And it has a little bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
OK.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, a quick rattle through the papers this morning with political commentator Claire Pearsall, journalist Auntie Jones. Good morning to you both. Claire,
morning.
Can we have a look at the Mail? Why are Gen Z turning their backs on marriage?
Well, he's quite interesting. Not sure of the reasons actually why. I think it's that there are many reasons to this. I think one of them is trying to meet the right person, but also the cost of marriages. But people don't see the necessity of getting married. They have seen a lot of people whose marriages are broken down, maybe even in their own families, and they're not willing to go through that sort of pain and heartbreak. And I kind of don't blame them, having been through one divorce, which was pretty horrendous. But it's very, very sad that you're seeing these people not willing to make that sort of final commitment. And I understand that you can still be together. You don't need a certificate to say how much in love you are.
You can still break up.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've had this very
it's...
conversation with my sons, and they say, you know, a commitment... You don't need a marriage to be a commitment.
Yes,
And they've seen the pain of breakup as well, amongst their friends and wider family, as well as the direct family. And they just don't see the need for the marriage certificate.
And I do think it's interesting.
I think that's sad, but they said, why is that sad?
Yeah, and that's it. You look at their attitude to it, and they're not fussed. I think it's probably our generation that's more concerned about it than theirs.
But they don't understand the difference it makes to get married, do they?
Maybe not. I mean, Gen Z, these are people born between 1997 and 2012, my internet tells me. But around 58%, according to the Marriage Foundation, only 58% will get married, which is barely half. One of the points I'd make is very often these children of that age, their own parents have broken up, and they've seen very much the pain, hardship, difficulty of that divorce and that fallout, where, you know, one parent might be the other side of the country, etc. But also,
but there's this stupid idea that makes them think, well, if you don't get married, then we don't go through that. Well, of course you do. If you're married in all but name, then of course breakups are actually more likely to happen, aren't they?
Well, quite. And then you still might have to see your children on the other side of town, and you still might have to argue over property. Marriage doesn't protect you from those sort of things. And I think also divorce, marriage particularly, we see on TV, I mean, pretty much every single TV show, particularly on the BBC, they're barely ever married, are they? They're sort of these sort of blended families. Media, film projects the idea of marriage as completely unnecessary. Divorce is something that's absolutely biblically terrible. And I feel like, and as well, very few of them go to church. It's very much nobody enforces the sanctity of marriage, the value of marriage, the security that marriage can bring you. I think they're very often now looking that they won't necessarily have children, they won't get married, and it will be very much an idea that you go and enjoy your life, work hard, try and buy a house, and that's it.
And I think also there's so much pressure on people to have the perfect wedding day. You see all of these programmes, you look at the dress, look at the venue, people spending tens of thousands of pounds on one day, and it has to be perfect. So people put all of the effort into making this absolutely picture-perfect day without thinking, A, is this the right reason to get married in the first place? Do I need all of this? Do I need 200 of my closest friends to be there at the time? Because largely you don't. And I think if you stop looking at it like that, marriage, there are many, many other reasons, and financial protection, things like that, especially when you're looking at pensions and when you're older. I think you only appreciate that as you grow up.
But also, hey, they don't want to follow our mistakes. I mean, their experience of what a successful marriage is has come from people our age.
Yeah.
So... It's not all their fault.
It's our fault.
We're not setting a good enough example.
Andy, tell us about this miserable devil in Suffolk.
Oh, you mean the Scroogey guy?
Scrooge.
Yeah, an inflatable Santa Claus has been punctured and wires on Christmas lights were cut in a spate of Scrooge-like incidents of criminal damage in 5 separate, loosely connected Suffolk villages.
I mean, there's
some individuals...
There's some great footage.
There is, yeah.
Of this rather sinister figure.
Have we got
yes, yeah.
Is going up to outside of a house and cutting the wires.
Yeah, I mean, this is somebody who's clearly got a vendetta, particularly against Christmas, whether it's the lights are too bright or whatever. But this isn't just somebody who's attacking lights. I mean, he's attacking inflatable Santa Clauses and all sorts of things. And clearly you can see this is an adult male who's clearly old enough to know better.
And frankly, I mean, they're calling him a Scrooge, but it's more sinister than that, isn't it?
It's very odd.
It's very threatening.
It is very, very threatening, going up to somebody's property to go and cut wires. You're up close and personal, and somebody has spent time and money decorating their house. Whether you like it or not, it's not your responsibility to go around cutting the wires off somebody else's house.
No. I
Ridiculous.
mean, there's a hunt underway, isn't there?
Oh, I should imagine in a local village it won't be long before someone finds them.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, someone's going to know who it is.
Of course they are.
I just think it's really, really miserable at this time of year to be doing that.
Yeah.
It's not the way to attack the problem. I mean, if the lights are really annoying you or something like that, it's not the way to attack the problem. But anyway, he's doing it in various places. It's obviously not just his neighbourhood.
No, he's going out of his way onto people's personal property to carry out attacks. And also, this isn't some buffoon who's drunk after the pub who's gone and pulled some lights down. He's clearly sort of wrapped up, brought tools with him.
Yeah, deliberately to go out.
Specific, persistent offence.
I lived in a village in Oxfordshire just a few years ago, and somebody went up to the tree that everybody had dressed in the middle of it, and they cut it down. They just chopped the tree down.
I mean, it is horrendous. You hear...
It was a proper living tree.
Miserable devils.
That everybody in the village decorated beautifully every Christmas, and somebody chopped it down.
Did they find out who it was?
That I can't remember. I will.
You have to. You have to. Yeah.
Well, that's an adult. What about the kids in all of this? Getting down with the kids musically for Christmas. I know you love a bit of grime or hip-hop or whatever they listen to these days.
I don't even really know what it is. Isn't it the same, though? Every single generation thinks that their music is better than anyone else's, and that's what you're happy to listen to. It's no surprise. If you look at my Spotify playlist, it has some very similar songs to...
Is it all the 80s stuff?
It's a lot of 80s music. Some 70s, some prog rock, because I like to be a little bit cool on my 12-minute tracks. But the rest of it, it's just music I like. It makes me happy. There are memories attached to it.
Jason Donovan.
Oh, especially for you.
To Pow.
Obviously. It's like you've got access to my playlist there, Stephen. I'm quite worried.
This has come from a study which says that we basically give up listening to new music when we get to 38, and then we live off the same 25 songs for the rest of our life.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
But you actually find a lot of younger people now will also say that they're sort of stuck in a musical rut, i.e. listening to the same songs, because on Spotify or other streaming providers, your algorithm just offers you the same music that you listened to before. And so you end up being exposed to the same music. And, of course, we don't have all consuming radio now, whereas all people listen to Radio 1 or Radio 2 or whichever, top of the pops. We now, our music choices are so fractured that we don't sort of cross-pollinate with different musical choices.
But isn't it just the age-old thing of... I remember my parents going, turn that rubbish off.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no words to that, no lyrics, no tune. And you're thinking, this is the best thing ever.
I wouldn't even know where you go to listen to new music now. Like, you go to HMV and you go and listen to random music, and somebody would be listening in the next booth or whatever and be listening to something. You listen to that, or radio.
You don't listen to your children.
No idea.
You're trapped.
Right, you two, thank you very much indeed. We're back with all the top stories in a minute.
On demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. MI5 investigates Prince Andrew's links to China.
After Prince Andrew allegedly received money from sources linked to a potential Communist Party spy.
Well, questions intensify as to the extent of their friendship, some worrying the spy was given access to other members of the royal family.
A Brexit betrayal? Leaked documents reveal the EU is demanding that Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
Festive fears for the elderly as Age UK launches a campaign to show pensioners they're not alone this Christmas.
And that Suffolk Scrooge is on the loose. A manhunt is now underway after vandals have torn down Christmas decorations in houses in East Anglia.
The Christmas countdown is on if you're a fan of Gavin and Stacey ahead of the show's finale on Christmas Day.
I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering.
I really didn't.
You're damaging my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there.
And what else might catch your fancy on the telly this Yuletide? Or do you believe there's no place for television on Christmas Day? We're debating just that this morning.
Good morning. Now listen to this. I sleep badly and I don't digest food well. Do I lose my mind sometimes? Yes, those. The chilling words of Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola ahead of this weekend's Manchester derby. In cricket, England take a huge step towards achieving a stunning whitewash in New Zealand. We'll have all the updates throughout the morning.
After a gloomy few days in the south and the east, much brighter weather turns up later today. The same can't be said towards the northwest. Full details on the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Barbara's been in touch this morning.
Oh.
And Barbara is very annoyed that people keep saying Xmas. Have to say, Barbara, I'm with you. I don't like it when people say Xmas instead of Christmas. But she said, can anyone actually explain what Xmas means?
Yeah, it's the X is just Chris, as in a crisscross.
Yeah, it's a cross.
Crisscross.
Crisscross.
Crisscross, yeah.
No, it's just a cross, as in Jesus died on the cross.
No, it isn't. No.
What is
it? Crisscross.
Oh, you lot, honestly. You see, let me draw this. If you're on the radio, I'm drawing a big X with a J through the middle. You can't see it on that camera because the white balance
too white.
isn't right. But an X with a J through the middle is Greek for Christ.
Oh.
So the X is just the abbreviated way to. Where's camera 2?
I thought it was just a spelling thing.
No. So that is Christ, means Christ.
That's interesting.
So that's where it comes from.
Where did you discover that?
At a sermon, a Christmas sermon, when I was a Cub Scout in Urswick.
These things never leave you,
when I was in the Urswick Cub Scouts.
Ever since then, you've been a smarty pants.
Ever since then, we've done well. A great vicar. I can't remember his name. He was a great vicar. He was very enthusiastic in this tiny little church.
Mate, it's such a difference, isn't it, when you get someone who delivers energetic sermons.
But at least you still learn from that. You know, from when I was 9 or something like that, what Xmas actually means. It does mean Christ.
I thought it was just shorthand. Always, that's what I thought.
No. So there you go. So that's what it means.
But I agree
Barbara,
with you that
saying Xmas.
say Christmas.
I didn't do Cubs. Did you? You did Cubs? Did you
Cubs
go
and
do
Boys Brigade.
brownies, guides?
No, I never did brownies. No.
I did Beavers. That was between.
Sorry?
I did
It was Beavers. What's
Yeah,
Beavers?
they were-
Never heard of Beavers.
Beavers is one before the Cubs. You wear a grey jumper with like a turquoise.
Yeah, you're
turquoise
very
tie.
little if you're a beaver.
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't exist in my day.
No. In your day.
No,
this is in the mid-80s.
Yeah, you're not that much younger than me, are
No,
you?
not like a bit
Well,
younger.
it
Depends where you live, I think.
It didn't
doesn't it?
exist in Cumbria. But no, and I'm still in touch with Arcala and all that.
Really?
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
What was the
The what?
I don't know.
Dib.
Yeah, the
Dob,
little
dob, dob.
hand signals or something.
Well,
Can
you
you
do
remember?
that. Yeah, I promise to do my best, to do my duty to God and to the Queen, to help other people and to keep the Cub Scout law.
Oh, I love
Good.
it.
That's the sort of thing you say in the Freemasons, though, isn't it?
It's not like the
That's what it is,
Freemasons.
junior Freemasons.
It's a brilliant thing. These things for young people. I was in that, and I was in Boys Brigade.
Yeah.
Amazing. And they bring you together once a week, all run by volunteers. Incredible stuff. The Cub Scout movement.
No, I
Love it.
totally agree. Brilliant thing. I tell you what, the other thing is a lot of people watching at the moment don't like Gavin and Stacey, do they?
No, good on you.
No. Saying, all right, it's all very well saying everybody's waiting for the Gavin and Stacey episode on Christmas Day, but I'm not.
No.
So, no, we understand that.
No, and you
Not
don't like
everybody's a
EastEnders
fan.
either.
No, I know. Absolutely.
I don't know why anybody watches EastEnders. It's like if you want to get thoroughly depressed, put it on.
It's still
Christmas Day is watchable, isn't it?
Oh, give over.
No, at Christmas Day, most people have the telly on and it's just background noise.
Well, see, people saying we don't put the telly on. It's about family time. It's about, and don't forget what Christmas is about.
Depends how insane your family are, I suppose, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. Maybe it's to do with what family you've got. Anyway, keep your thoughts going through gbnews.com/your say.
That was a flashback, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. OK. Let's move on to our top story now. It's what everybody's talking about. Chinese money linked to Prince Andrew is now under investigation by MI5 as more details emerge about the embattled Duke's connection to an alleged spy.
Yeah, it's believed Prince Andrew invited the man in question, described as a close confidant, to Buckingham Palace. Their relationship reportedly going back to 2012.
Now, Prince Andrew has said he ceased all contact with the businessman in question and denied discussing anything of a sensitive nature.
Well, meanwhile, the palace have claimed it has no power to scrutinise Andrew's finances.
Well, earlier on, we spoke to the former head of Royal Protection, Di Davis.
I don't know how Prince Andrew went about for the last 20 years or more. Clearly, he has an extremely bad advisory group, if indeed he relies on those. But I suspect he goes where he wants to go. And clearly, the backdrop to this was that you and I were paying him for many, many years. And indeed, as a member of the royal family, we were paying for him anyway. But what I'm trying to say is he's used, I suspect, and I probably would allege that he's used his backdrop of being our ambassador to actually ensure that he has contacts. And clearly it shows bad judgment yet again. Somebody asked me yesterday, is he naive? Well, how often can you be so naive and to have so many bad people close to you, so close that you entertain them at Buckingham Palace and James's, and probably took him up to Balmoral as well once the investigation comes back. It absolutely stinks, in my opinion, and it's a time we had a look at where does he get his money from, how many bungs did he receive over the years, and so on and so forth. The Royals won't discuss it now, but somebody should be discussing it, and I think it's right that we have scrutiny.
Why would China be interested in him?
Well, China has been trying to infiltrate members of, not as it appears now, royalty, but also MPs. You would only have to have Duncan Smith on your programme to realise how extensive they are. And we have literally thousands of Chinese individuals at universities and in organisations here. They are bent on intelligence. They thrive on intelligence. And they thrive on getting useful idiots, as some people describe them. And clearly, I suspect he was amongst those that they've tried to infiltrate for whatever information. But once they got you, it's a bit like blackmail. Once you've taken that golden shilling, they've got you. I know well with Russia, they do exactly the same. I know of people in the House of Lords who were approached by the Russians, and I've no doubt the Chinese as well. They are experts at seducing men and women to gather intelligence information, and they're willing to wait a long time, as far as I'm aware, until they need you. But once they've got you, once they've hooked you, like a blackmailer, they've got you.
Does that mean once they hook you, you know you've been hooked? I mean, because that begs the question, you know, has Prince Andrew been bumbling along without knowing anything about this, or has he been at some point properly put on the hook and is aware of what's going on?
Well, one simply doesn't know, and again, what's coming out now, he didn't know, and as soon as he was advised and so on, he had nothing to do with it. We don't know when whoever advised him not to have contact with this, but it's clearly he let a gentleman by the name of Hampshire, I believe, actually induce firms in China. And I suspect, if the pattern of his behavior, I suspect, is that he would be rewarded. Now, if you're naive enough to think that they do it just because you are a royal and they just like you, then you are extremely naive. But somebody somewhere should have been watching him. And there are questions to be asked, I think, of the security services. What were they doing? Were they asleep at the wheel? Where a former senior member of the royal family was cavorting. But this has happened, you know. It's happened with so many dodgy people over the last 20 or more years. Then surely somebody could have got a grip of this man and said, you know, enough is enough. Didn't he learn any lessons from Epstein? Hasn't he learned any lessons from selling his house to dodgy dictators? It beggars belief, the naivety, but also the fact that he was allowed to get away with it for so long. There has to be an inquiry. What money was he given or received by the Chinese and anyone else over the years?
And, of course, you have to ask who is paying for him to stay at Royal Lodge, because we understand that Buckingham Palace has said they've got no power and no right to quiz him about his finances.
Well, it does seem extraordinary to me, but there is a huge, extraordinary veil drawn over anything to do with royals in terms of their finances. So that doesn't surprise me. Clearly, he is a member of the royal, was a member of the royal family, still is in real theory, you know, and for them to wash their hands now and say, well, I was upstairs collecting fares while all this was going on, as the saying goes, beggars belief as well. Somebody needs to get a grip of this. A very famous author, Andrew Lowney, has been is writing a book about him, and I know, because I've been in contact with him, the difficulty on finding any information about this man and his associates meets a brick wall. No, it's time the veil was unleashed, as it were, and we start to find out what on earth has been going on, because he is a senior member, or was, of the royal family. He's done more harm, as I said yesterday, to the royal family than Oliver Cromwell and his associates put together.
Well, in response, the Duke of York has, well, his office at least has released a statement saying the Duke of York followed advice from His Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. He met the individual through official channels. Nothing of a sensitive nature was ever discussed. He is unable to comment further on matters relating to national security.
Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in the UK said some individuals in the UK are always eager to fabricate baseless spy stories targeting China. Their purpose is to smear China and disrupt normal exchanges between Chinese and British personnel.
I love that. I mean, I love the Chinese statement.
Yeah. Well, it's
just because it's just what you say, isn't it? And we all... The reality is we all spy on each other. The UK does it, America does it. I mean, everyone does it, it's partly.
I know, but... Yeah.
If we didn't, we wouldn't like James Bond, would we?
True.
It's the nature of the beast.
OK, let's move on to domestic politics, if you like. And leaked documents have revealed the European Union is going to demand that Sir Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
Another key dispute will include freedom of movement amongst under-30s, with Brexiteers fearing that these plans betray the 2016 referendum result.
And of course, all this comes as the Prime Minister has been desperately attempting to reset relations with Europe.
Let's talk to former Liberal Democrat MP Mark Oaten. Mark, good to see you this morning. I know the Lib Dems were desperate to overturn the referendum result, but it was a democratic process, wasn't it? Is it right that the Prime Minister is trying to skirt round the edges and reconnect some of the dots?
Well, look, as you say, Brexit happened, it was voted for, and so you've got to try and make it work, that phrase that so many Tory prime ministers try to use. So the reality is something has to happen. You have to look at what post-Brexit arrangements are going to be, and this is a very complex and tangled process. My concern is that what we're going to end up with is the next decade of starting to put a deal here for fishing, a deal for young people, then it'll be a deal on the environment, then it'll be a deal about movement of goods. And all of a sudden you have, in effect, Brexit being unturned and creeping back to something which isn't as good as we had before Brexit. So this is in many ways the worst of all worlds. You either have a full Brexit and you cut ties, or you go back full in. What we've got here is a form of sort of okey-cokey, you're half in, you're half out. And that's the worst of all worlds, in my view.
And do you worry that in order to get the concessions and the deals that we want, Europe is still going to be in the frame of mind that they want to punish us for Brexiting at all?
I mean, absolutely. They are very, very angry still at the decision. I spend a lot of time in Brussels and travelling. Every meeting I go to in Brussels, you know, the first 30 seconds an attack on the UK, and I have to explain I didn't vote for it. So there's still a lot of anger and scepticism there, and they don't see why the UK should have any benefits at all if they're not a full member. But if you look at some of the issues around the movement of under 30s, this is something that should be sorted out. It needs to be resolved, but it shouldn't be done as part of some side deal around fishing rights, which is equally as important. And this is the concern. I don't have confidence in Keir Starmer, and certainly not David Lammy, in being able to negotiate these issues. And it seems very shady that you're setting off one important issue against another. These are nasty, dirty deals being done, and it's not what either those who supported Brexit want or people like me who would rather be properly engaged in Europe. It's the worst of every outcome.
Is it anti-democratic in the sense that, look, I mean, governments have to negotiate and all the rest of it. It's what we vote them in to do. However, this is, as you say, going, you know, okey-cokey on Brexit, which nobody voted for. So shouldn't actually the priority be to be all out, hard Brexit, make it work in the way that it was meant to work, in the way that people voted for it?
Although it's not something I agree with, I absolutely agree with your logic, Stephen. People voted for it, and it should be, therefore, a hard Brexit in that sense. And so everybody's going to feel let down now, because those that voted for Brexit will suddenly see over the next 5 years bits of the EU influence coming back. Those like me that would rather engage with the EU are going to be frustrated at seeing these deals being done, which mean, frankly, very little in terms of solving some of the difficulties about engagement. But this was always going to be the problem. You can't rip away thousands and thousands of rules and regulations with the EU and then just expect nothing to happen, nothing to replace it. You're going to constantly have these problems, such as the fishing rights. You're going to have the problem of young people who are involved in student projects in different countries. You're going to see difficulties with movement of goods. You're going to see people like me trying to travel and getting sick to death of having to queue for hours to get through customs. So this is the reality we're facing. The question is, how do you fix it? And I don't have confidence in Starmer and Lammy because I don't think they quite know how to fix it either.
Well, on that note, I'm afraid we have to end. It's good to talk to you, though, Mark. Thanks very much indeed. Which brings us to our poll of the day. Now, our question today is, will the government's economic policy avoid recession? It's an interesting question. We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. Final result will be announced later in Nana Akwe's show. And, of course, you know to go to gbnews.com/poll for any more info.
Now, as you know, during Advent, we're counting down to Christmas Day, and every day our Advent calendar opens up to a minister from across the country with a special message for you.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 14.
My name's Marcus. I'm a priest in the Church of England. Have you ever experienced one bad thing after another in a very short space of time? Maybe the car breaks down, then your washing machine breaks down, then you get sick, then you find out your loved one has been diagnosed with cancer, and so on and so on. When you think life could get harder, it gets harder. It will be easy to despair and lose hope and see these bad things as a sign that God is against you. But this time of Christmas, we are reminded that God came down in the person of Jesus Christ to suffer with us and for us. It is a sign that tells us that God is for us and not against us. It tells us that nothing can separate us from the love of God. God hasn't promised to give us an easy life on earth, but He has promised to be with us through all the good and the bad in life, to be our strength, to be our peace, and to be our joy through it all. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
Oh, Merry Christmas, indeed.
Very good is Reverend Marcus.
They all have been.
Very good, yeah.
You can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches, of course, by visiting gbnews.com/Advent.
Right, let's have a look at the weather for you with Aidan.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days, it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
7:22, still to come for you. Should you be watching TV on Christmas Day? We'll debate it next.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses the road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, as we build up to Christmas Day, television fans gear up for the annual festive specials.
But should we be sat around watching TV, or should we be playing games, having a few drinks, and guess what? Talking.
Oh, we're debating just that. Should people be watching the box on the most magical day of the year?
Let's talk to showbiz broadcaster Hayley Sparks and political commentator David Moore. Hayley, what should we be doing?
Oh, good morning, everyone. Well, I say that Christmas is the best time to have the TV on. It's been a tradition since 1957. And of course, it's when all of the channels go to town. They know they've got a captive audience. So we've got all of the Christmas specials to look forward to, family favourites. And for me, I think it brings families together, a chance to crack open the Quality Street, cuddle on the sofa, and also relax, because the adults in the family do work very hard over the festive period, and not everyone has the luxury of being at home all day on Christmas Day. A lot of our NHS workers, for example, might have done a long shift. So to come home, relax in front of the TV on Christmas Day, I think is very much part of our festive traditions.
OK, David, what do you think to that?
Well, we may hear it as a tradition since 1957, but the meaning of Christmas is over 2,000 years old. The meaning of Christmas, the breaking of bread with family and friends, seeing friends and family we haven't seen perhaps in months, if not years. I think we can cut the TV out for a few hours at least, if not a day. Getting the turkey out the oven and onto the table, breaking bread in that Christian fellowship for those who do celebrate Christmas. I think that's a very important part of the Christmas message, and the television can really act as a distraction to that. The television, sometimes we watch our Christmas specials in the evening, but, if you're seeing that friend or family you haven't seen in ages, at least you can spend some time with them for the day. So let's cut the television out, put the phone away, and let's enjoy some great chat, because there's so much to talk about this year, as well as looking to more positive notes in 2025.
I mean, that's the point, Hayley, isn't it? I mean, you can slob out in front of the TV with the family any day of the year.
You can. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you have the television on for 24 hours of the day. I certainly wouldn't have it on during meal time, but I think it's very, very hectic, especially in my house on Christmas Day. It is quite exhausting. After you've unwrapped all your presents, you've cooked the meal, the children have been running around. I think that is the time that you do want to relax. And devices now are, unfortunately, they are the biggest distraction, and often maybe people with children or teenagers in the household, often their teenagers and children will be off in different rooms on mobile phones, but having that central time in front of the TV actually can provoke conversation, get the kids off their devices, all sat around the telly together, and TV can evoke laughter, joy, conversation. Often the soaps actually tackle quite challenging topics which might open discussions in a family that are actually really important. So I don't think watching TV is as shallow as it seems, and I think it can actually provoke conversation as well in a really positive way.
And surely, David, the TV isn't only showing sitcoms and soap operas. There are lots of live broadcasts from churches all over Britain. You get a good bit of music, and frankly, if you want to, you get a good bit of the sort of religious service that you'd expect.
That's very true, but the key in what you just said was music. We can have it on in the background. We can hear, whether it be carols from kings or indeed a service on Christmas Day. We can have it on in the background whilst the turkey's cooking, but we can still chat. We can still open that glass of sherry. And we can also understand that who has the time to be glued in front of the TV at Christmas? Once you have the Christmas lunch, those who like to attend church, for example, in person, I know I'll be doing that on Christmas Day, but then after which, we're going to be looking at our friends and family, not at the television screen. We shouldn't be glued to that. We can have it on in the background, we can listen to it, but that's arguably radio. We have a fantastic opportunity to make sure we can break bread with our friends and family, really spend time with them, and show that Christmas love that we all deserve.
Yeah, quality time, Hayley, I guess, is the argument, and you can do that with a board game to get everyone together, can't you?
You can do, but I mean, let's be realistic. Unfortunately, we are living in a time where, TV, media, social media is part and parcel of our daily lives now. So I do think it's more difficult when people are used to that kind of visual stimulation to then expect them to spend an entire day with no TV, no phones, nothing like that on. I mean, what about the King's Speech, for example? That is 5.9 million of us tuned in last year to watch the King's Speech. Obviously, lots going on in the royal family. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what the King is saying about this year after everything that they've been through. So I completely disagree. I really do think it can bring families together. I think it can be quite important to the nation to listen to messages from the King, like you said, religious services, music, singing. It's all part and parcel of what we get from watching TV. I think there always has to be a balance, but for me and my family, it'd definitely be part of our Christmas Day.
Well, certainly we believe in it here. What else could
Sure
you say?
do.
I know
Well,
you don't have the television on
No,
Christmas
television
Day.
does not go on Christmas Day.
But we are a television business.
Oh, yes.
So, you've got to just... horses for courses, really, I suppose. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Christmas Day, however you spend it, whether it's in front of the box or not. I tell you what, one programme you might want to watch, even if you are very keen as a family on doing the board game thing, is that Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, he is doing a special programme around Christmas, I'm not sure what day, in which he tells you how to always win at the family board games. For instance, if you just see the headline there, always buy the orange properties in Monopoly. In Scrabble, memorise all 127 two-letter words, I don't know why. How to beat your family at board games this Christmas.
But if you all watch it as a family together, then you're all going to know how to win.
Okay,
so then what happens?
Forget I said buy the orange properties. That's one I'm going to keep to myself.
Oh, right, OK. In case the boys are watching, they might be. Right. How about a load of money to help you get into the new year? Great British giveaway is £50,000 in tax-free cash. You could have it in your bank account by the end of January. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Mid-afternoon Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended and the university union started an investigation into me. And that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right.
And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point, I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Aidan's got the sport at 7:37. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you both.
We know we're playing in the World Cup, do we? Or
well, the draw was done yesterday in Switzerland. I mean, England put in Group K alongside Serbia, Albania, Latvia and Andorra. Now,
that's good news then, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's good news in the sense that you would assume that England are going to have quite a comfortable route through to the World Cup. And they're going to, that takes place in USA, Mexico and Canada in a couple of years from now. My concern, though, is that we always moan, don't we, when it comes to international breaks, that it's not very interesting, it's very processional. In fact, that's how you get a situation where we had earlier in the year when we talked about Lee Carsley not being able to sing or not wanting to sing the national anthem. There's always a story around it because the football's not that good. And the story is always thrown up because it's the sideshow is more interesting than the main course, if you like. And I fear this is going to happen again. Now, I suppose that's what qualifying is for. You separate the wheat from the chaff, and the elite sides get to the main tournament. But with the World Cup getting bigger and bigger, you're seeing this pool expand, and we're seeing a lesser quality of football. The clubs are getting annoyed by it, and secretly they have been for quite a while, because they don't like surrendering their players to international duty, knowing they're going to be going up against substandard opposition and they risk getting injured. And of course, the players earn the bulk of their money with their club sides as opposed to internationals. So that's my concern. Also, if you're playing these sides, are you really going to get a proper examination, a full test before you go to the World Cup? I would say that's highly unlikely. Now, if you look at Northern Ireland's group, for example, they're playing the winner of the playoff between Germany and Italy. Just that one game alone is going to be harder than any of the games that England are going to play. Wales have got Belgium for the 9th time in 6 years, I think it is. Scotland are going to be up against, it looks like Portugal. So they've got tougher games because they're lower-ranked nations. It seems to be the price of being a high-ranked nation is that you face the lesser teams. And I don't think the people at Wembley, running Wembley, were particularly happy because it means you've got a lot of fixtures against pretty poor opposition, and it's very, very difficult to attract a full house in those circumstances. But Thomas Tuchel, the England manager, very excited about, he thinks there's been some negativity around his appointment, given that he's German, and there's a few things in his intro. He wants to bring Ben White back into the squad. He wants to keep Harry Kane, who he worked with at Bayern Munich, as captain. So plenty to prove to him. He takes over on January the 1st.
Right, really good. Meanwhile, what's going on with Pep Guardiola?
Well, what's not going on with Pep Guardiola, according to him?
Football's not very good, but he seems to be blaming it on his diet.
Well, it's also
on his stomach.
It's also his sleep as well, and it's some of his tics, as you would call them. You know, he said that he actually dug his nail into the bridge of his nose. We saw it the other week, and he looked like he had a Barney with some of the players after a bad defeat. But more tellingly, he said that this is a manifestation of what's been going on the pitch. They've won one match in 10 games. They've won one out of the last 10 games, sorry. He's managed in excess of 800 matches since 2008. This is truly uncharted territory, not just for Manchester City, but for him personally. And these are some of the quotes. He said, I'm fine, despite admitting his sleep and diet are being affected by the worst run of results in his managerial career. He said that his state of mind was ugly and his sleep was worse, and he's eating lighter as his digestion has suffered. Now, look,
it hardly instills confidence, those sort of
No, I
comments,
know.
does it?
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. What do the players think about this?
Yeah.
And he says he needs more star players. Well, they spent fortunes in recent years. The squad should be able to manage this. And how much do you reckon he earns in a year? Did I mention it earlier?
You did.
20 million.
20 million.
Yeah, I mean, that should soften the blow.
Well, it should get him a good dietitian.
He also gets bonuses for winning trophies.
Chef.
Yes, he does. Well, look, the subplot to this, of course, and that's what it sounds like, is that tomorrow they face their big rivals, Manchester United, in the derby at the Etihad at 4:30. And look at United as well. I mean, this is one of Pep's points. He said it's very rare that these two face each other when there's the stuff at stake. Of course there is, but neither of them are really going for the title, it seems, at the moment. But
Man City are going to win that one, though.
United don't do too badly away from home at their... Is that your prediction?
It's going to be Man City 2-0.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. Well, they haven't actually pulled up trees since Amram got in there. And on that run of 10 games, one win in 10 games, Amram was actually the manager in a third of those matches when he was manager at Sporting. So, look, there's a lot for United to do as well. Marcus Rashford's still not firing for them either.
They're right.
No, he's not. There's a story in the papers today from former Watford striker Troy Deeney saying that he better buck his eyes up. He better buck his ideas up pretty quickly because he's going to regret it. So you're a long time retired.
Oh, that's
true.
Yeah. And how old is he?
Nice.
He's 26, 27.
Oh,
I'll check on that.
Be nice to be a long time retired, that's all right. Very nice to do. Hey, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. See you later.
Do stick with us because Andy Jones and Claire Pearsall will be joining us pretty soon to go through the newspapers.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing. You do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
Okay.
That's the closest you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later. Sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station. And just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool's going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music.
Yeah.
In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was non-needle time. Yeah. So I used to put like the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:45, let's go through the papers with political commentator Claire Pearsall and the journalist Andy Jones. Good morning. In the Telegraph, Claire, what's going on with state schools? Got no room left for private pupils?
No, this is a freedom of information request went into Surrey County Council to see how many places they would have for age 13. So I think this is sort of mid-year going into year 9. And the answer that came back was there will be no spaces. It comes as a surprise to nobody. So private school pupils who are affected by the VAT increase, whose parents now wish to move them into the state sector in Surrey, will have absolutely no space whatsoever.
The government has an obligation.
A duty. It does have a duty, but it could now look to be out of county if they don't physically have space.
Right. They would make you take a place that was really difficult to get to.
Really difficult to get to. They would only have to pay for transport on certain circumstances. Essentially, they are finding you the space and they have then dispatched their duty. So it's not looking particularly great for kids in that area. I should imagine it's also not the only council area that's going to be affected.
It's going to happen all over. And then you get left with not only are you offered then a school that is really difficult for your child to get to, but also really not one that you would choose. In other words,
that's the problem.
Not going to be that high up the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Surrey would potentially have a significantly higher percentage of private school places than perhaps other counties, but we're in a position where it's gone from no tax to 20% tax, and that's obviously quite a hike, particularly in this economy, for a lot of struggling parents. And not necessarily every parent who's sending their child to private school has got huge amounts of excess income. And this freedom of information request by a concerned parent in Surrey found that there was no places left this September, the September coming up, for years 9, 10 and 11, so that's sort of 12 to sort of 15. And this means that there could potentially be 2,500 pupils that might not have a place. And then you've got this disastrous situation of pupils being crammed into crowded classrooms, having that sort of position where they're in sort of splinter sort of huts at the side of the school because there isn't any room to get them into places. Or also, as Claire said, you've then got to take your child, you know, several extra miles somewhere else, and then you've got the economic cost of then you're having to, you know, take extra time off work to take your kids to school. It's an issue where I absolutely understand the logic of putting a tax on private school, but then do you actually save money, or are you actually then spending money
but
that you're not going to spend?
And also don't have it come in January, which is in the middle of a school year.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
You haven't allowed the school's time for planning or for parents if they need to take their kids out of school.
Is it proven that in this case, for instance, it is because of the government's change on VAT? Or do we face this crisis? It just rings a bell that, you know, you face a certain crisis every year with a number of places.
You do. In-year admissions are always incredibly difficult. In Kent, where I live, it's very difficult, especially years 10 and 11, which is those important GCSE years. Trying to get a child moved mid-year is practically impossible as it is. but that's only sort of 1 or 2 children. So schools are oversubscribed. Counties haven't taken into account growing population for very many reasons, and they haven't done that for decades. So there aren't enough school places, there aren't enough teachers. So then to take out those in the private sector and try and decant them into the state is never going to work, especially not in year.
Yes. Well, look, a lot of people would agree with you. Andy, let's look at the Times, should we? ID cards. We want them now.
Yes. I mean, I remember former Prime Minister Boris Johnson famously saying if he was given an ID card, he was asked for an ID card, he'd eat it or something ridiculous, what he said. So, but now we are in it's a very changing political times now, even just a short while on from that Johnson statement. We're very much changing our mind about digital ID cards. A More in Common survey, who do big public surveys, found that 53% of people are now in favour of a universal digital ID, with only 19% against it, which is a huge shift in a very short amount of time. Why have we had this shift? Huge amounts of illegal immigration into the UK. We're told that we can't deport people because we very often can't prove who they are. We can't prove that they're the person that they say they are. We can't prove that they're not the person that they say they are, which digital ID would partially solve. Also, people seeing their organisational problems of every time they want an NHS appointment, you have to give so much of information over, and a digital ID card would speed up all sorts of different processes for that. And then, of course, you get to digital crime. Now, digital ID cards wouldn't vanish digital crime, but the fraud bill last year alone for digital fraud was 220 billion. And you think about the thump that has on the economy. There's a story the other day of a guy who had his phone snatched out of his hand, and he was walking along, and then they managed, because his phone was open and locked, they managed to then get sort of £20,000 out of his savings before he could go and turn it all off. And there's an idea that digital ID cards will solve a certain amount of that. However, in that guy's case, all his settings were open. And so digital ID would not necessarily stop that. But people are now changing their mind. They're saying digital ID would stop a lot of crime, it'd stop a lot of illegal immigration, it'd speed up processes.
I don't know what the issue is. And when we say, if you've got to prove who you are, well, we need that in this country at the minute, don't we?
Yes, we do, but where's it going to be held? And the one thing I always worry about is when governments have access to absolutely everything. So if digital ID, you have everything on one record, what happens, for example, if your phone gets stolen? That is your entire identity in one place. All of your financial records, all of your ID, everything.
But aren't we a bit naive to think that that's not already available to anyone who really wants it?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a headline, we'll probably go into it later, on the front page of one of the newspapers, which is reporting seriously that even your air fryer in your kitchen is gathering data on you. And it's a question of who that data is being sold to.
And that's right. If you have a store loyalty card, they have more data on how you shop, when you shop, what time of day it is, all the rest of it. And they have that data and they use it to target you for other media. That is sold on. I think we know that. I'm just very concerned. Governments are not great at keeping your data safe. And I've seen it with things like HMRC and child tax credit records.
Home Office
gets
hacked.
Any government computer system seems to have
They're woeful.
Problems.
They are absolutely woeful, and I really I'm concerned about that side of it.
But equally, secure servers things that we've got to sort out. Let's move on to something else, Andy.
OK.
Before we run out of time. Can we have a look at greedflation, Claire, in the Mail?
We can indeed. So this, I think, will come as no surprise at this time of year. Anything with the word Christmas, festive, it's got a bit of holly on the packaging, is going to be an increase in price. And I think we see that with things like biscuits, and suddenly it's a festive edition, so they'll stick on another 60, 70p, pound, whatever it is. Some foods are up as much as 38% in a year. And you sort of... It's unsurprising for some things, because if you're importing, there have been certain changes with taxes, and also you look at what's happened with the climate, coffee, for example, that has gone up in price. But it does seem that every single year we get to Christmas and there's always a ramp up in price.
And what worries me most of all, in The Guardian, Andy, chocolates.
Yeah, they lead with the headline Inequality Street, which important reporting from The Guardian. They have emptied out a giant's Inequality Street, and they basically said that the nation's favourite ones, which you will change in every single house, and we already know this from our own family experiences, very few of the purple ones, very few of the green triangles, and then loads and loads of the cheaply made sugary toffee ones. And then they're even more expensive because you then lose a filling when you're eating them. You got an appointment in January.
I lost a crown on one of those.
Did you?
Yeah, it cost me 600 quid.
What?
Merry
Christmas. It's very expensive toffee.
Put you off chocolate.
Yeah, it does put me off toffee.
Yeah.
Right, you two, thank you very much indeed. We shall see you a little bit later on.
Right now, let's catch up with today's weather. Here's Aidan McGivern.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoz Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by Yoz?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like,
I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark, and
you're going to Primark.
Got stopped by yours.
How did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah. Then he gave me his card and explained everything. That he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you away.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun.
Wow.
Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest.
Wow.
To be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not.
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face, ready? 3, I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
This
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning to you. MI5 investigates Prince Andrew's links to China.
After the Duke allegedly received money from sources linked to a potential Communist Party spy.
Well, there are questions as to the extent of their friendship, some worrying the spy had access to other members of the royal family.
A Brexit betrayal. Leaked documents reveal that the EU is demanding Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
Fears for the elderly as Age UK launches a campaign to show pensioners that they're not alone at Christmas.
And Suffolk Scrooge is on the loose. A manhunt is apparently underway after vandals tear down Christmas decorations in East Anglia.
All right, if you're a fan of Gavin and Stacey, well, the count is on to the big finale on Christmas Day.
I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering.
I really didn't.
You're damaging my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there.
Now, new England boss Thomas Tuchel has promised to prove his doubters wrong after learning who their opponents will be in World Cup qualifying. And in cricket, England take a huge step towards achieving a stunning whitewash in New Zealand. More later.
After a gloomy few days in the south and the east, much brighter weather turns up later today. The same can't be said towards the northwest. Full details on the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I had lots of you getting in touch on ID cards. Jay says, bring it on. Carol says we've got them in Spain, works well on everything. One number stays with you. Same one, you have it in a chipped medical card. The UK needs to look at how it works there.
I know, I used to be dead against them, because this has been debated for many years.
Yeah.
And I was dead against them, just on the idea that you're giving up another part of your privacy. I feel totally the opposite now.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I just think that the world has changed, and security is not as good as it should be. And with the high levels of everything from immigration to whatever, maybe we need ID cards now.
Neil says, if you've nothing to hide, why not?
Well, that always used to be the argument, except that you shouldn't have to prove you've got nothing to hide. It's not about that. But
well, except we've reached a point where maybe you do.
Well, maybe it is, yeah.
There were thought to be a solution to football hooliganism in the 80s. It was an idea spawned by Colin Moynihan, the old sports minister. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and they were resisted within the game.
Yeah.
But again, the world's changed, hasn't it?
And people say, well, you'd be tracked a bit more and all the rest of it. We're
tracked now. I mean, all of us have got mobile phones now, haven't we? And apparently, if you've got a mobile phone, you've given up most of your data.
Yeah, you have
anyway, you really have.
If you happen to log into, for example, Google Maps when you're in somewhere, and I did it the other week, and it suddenly said, "Oh, you're in such and such a cafe. You've not been there since 2016." or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not true.
What?
Yeah.
It was true.
And when I was abroad, I tried to get into my Netflix account on my phone, and it said, "Oh, you look as though you're travelling."
Yes.
And then it started to want to sell me travel insurance and things like that. I thought, hang on a minute, how dare you?
I buy so much stuff on those targeted adverts that are made for those.
But, you know, it's how the world works nowadays.
Yep.
Maybe you've got to embrace it rather than stick our head in the sand.
Oh, and I tell you, I got a thing from my mobile phone the other day, because where did I was walking somewhere, can't remember, unusually a long distance. Must have been stuck somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, the phone suddenly blinkered on me, and it said, "We notice you're doing a workout. Would you like us to log your workout?" So I'm not doing a workout, I just had to walk a long way.
Well,
and it obviously thought it was unusual for me to do that.
No comment.
No, exactly.
No comment.
But that just shows it's sort of monitoring you.
Everything gets monitored these days, so why not have a digital ID card? Anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay. Our main news this morning is all about Chinese money. Is it linked to Prince Andrew? Well, he's now under investigation by MI5, apparently, as more details emerge about his connection to an alleged spy.
Yeah, it's believed that Prince Andrew invited the man in question, described as a close confidant, to Buckingham Palace, with their relationship reportedly dating back to 2012.
Well, Andrew said he ceased all contact with the man in question and denied discussing anything of a sensitive nature.
Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace have claimed that they have no power to scrutinise the Duke's finances.
Let's talk to former Defence Minister Tobias Ellwood, who joins us this morning. Good to see you, Tobias. What do you make of all of this? How concerned should we be that it looks as though at least someone was really trying to infiltrate the royal family, never mind if there was money exchanged or not?
Well, I'm glad you've introduced this story as much about China as it is a royal story, because this is what China does, and it's very, very good at it. This is called grey zone warfare, seeking opportunities, looking for vulnerabilities to gain privileged or indeed restricted access at the highest levels. Their mission is twofold. Firstly, to promote a softer, more positive image of China, and secondly, to exploit and seek opportunities for coercion, espionage, intellectual property theft, causing deniable economic harm and sowing political discord, getting us all talking about these things. It's actually no surprise, I'm afraid, that Prince Andrew, given what's happened to him with all his royal household support that might have arguably better advised him, was targeted in this way. And I'm sure that there'll be questions asked about that. My takeaway is that this is a big geopolitical concern, the absence of a clear strategy. And it's absolutely right that we look further, that MI5 investigates to see where else China might have exploited opportunities in this very same way.
Yes, I mean, a lot of people are getting in touch and saying, why would they be remotely interested in Prince Andrew? What would he know that would be of any use to them? But it's the fact that you're saying that it's infiltration of everything. We're just hearing about Prince Andrew.
Absolutely right. And you're correct. Prince Andrew, per se, might have been cut off. He still has contacts. He's still involved in a certain sense. He can still make other introductions. But it isn't the fact that, oh, let's not do Prince Andrew. They'll do everybody that they can, hoping that something might produce something. That's the Chinese approach here. And that's what, as I say, we need to be concerned about. That is this grey zone war. I can't stress it more, of how authoritarian states that wish us harm will cause us harm from afar. It's very, very easy to do, particularly with the digital domain as well. But vulnerable people in our society could be targeted in this way. But also you could be making errors without even realizing it, because our clarity of what to do about China. We know that they are rising. We know that they're becoming more assertive, but we also feel obliged to trade with them because they are so powerful. And we need to clarify how we stand up to China in a way that doesn't lead to conflict, or in a way that does allow us to trade, but in a safe way to secure our infrastructures, to secure our economy, and indeed our political discord.
Yeah, OK. Tobias Ellwood, really good to talk to you. Thank you. We've had a response from Prince Andrew's office, as you would expect, and the Duke of York, they say, followed advice from His Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels with nothing of a sensitive nature ever discussed. He's unable to comment further on matters relating to national security.
And then, of course, we've had a statement from the Chinese embassy in the UK saying some individuals in the UK are always eager to fabricate baseless spy stories targeting China. Their purpose is to smear China and disrupt normal exchanges between Chinese and British personnel.
Let's just bring in some breaking news from South Korea. Martial law, you remember, was declared last week, and what a hoo-ha. It didn't actually go through. It didn't get approved by the parliament, but there's great concern because it was basically done, it would seem, to force through a budget. Anyway, Yoon Suk-yeol,
who's the president,
has been impeached now by parliament. I mean, no real surprise there that this has happened. The process, so he's been suspended. The process is going to take a number of weeks. He could be, at the end of that process, removed from office, but that may not be the case. But I mean, bet your bottom dollar that will happen.
Well, yeah, because he sort of plunged the country into crisis, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, sort of.
Nobody could figure out what was going on.
No one took any notice of it, which is the slightly weird thing.
Yes.
But anyway, I mean, there's already one of the people involved in this tried to take their own lives. There's this great honour issue in places like South Korea. So you can imagine this will go through, but he's at the moment suspended until these impeachment proceedings are concluded, at which point he may be removed from office. So the Prime Minister is acting president in South Korea at the moment.
OK, well, at 8:09, back to home, domestic issues, and leaked documents have revealed the European Union is going to demand from Keir Starmer a surrender of UK fishing rights, all part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
They're also looking at freedom of movement amongst, well, students, essentially. It's anyone under 30, actually, is on the proposal, with Brexiteers and perhaps even those who didn't vote for Brexit, fearing that it betrays the results of the 2016 referendum.
And all of this coming, of course, as the Prime Minister has been desperately attempting to, what he calls, reset relations with the EU.
Let's talk to political strategist Peter Barnes, who's here. They're not going back on the referendum on Brexit. We've been told that explicitly. But are they circumnavigating it?
Well, let's be honest, democracy is about to be sold out by a man with a slick haircut and a donated suit. This is not a reset, this is realignment. You know, it's something that many of us argue that Keir Starmer was going to push for this very heavily as soon as he got into office. And whilst many of us expected a little bit of smaller, more technical changes, there is a lot on the table all at once. And the question we really have to ask is, why are we even at this table in the first place? So you've got university students, fisheries, animal health and illegal immigration. Now, these issues may seem to be to do with trade, but I actually think there's something more at play here. I think this is political. If we actually look where a lot of this has come from, it's not come from the Commission. It's come from the Council of Europe. It's come from European leaders. And what we're really seeing is the European Union leaders panicking about not what's happening in Europe, it's about what's happening over the other side of the Atlantic, and that's Donald Trump. The European Union's actual economic situation isn't great. And with the impending probably trade wars and tariffs coming from the United States, you know, a lot of this stuff is starting to kind of scare a lot of European leaders. And yeah, this is kind of where we are now, that they want to kind of bring the UK back to heel. And this is not, it won't be a negotiation because it's Keir Starmer. He's just got to roll over and sign, have his belly tickled and say, where do I sign? You know, this is a real betrayal, in my opinion.
And that's what a lot of people will be frightened of, is that when we left in Brexit, when we left Europe, they were decidedly hostile to us and gave us all the impression that, you know, that our relationship with them would be one of punishment.
Yeah.
They would always punish me. So if we're going to try and row back on any parts, little bits and pieces, they're going to exact a price that we won't want to pay.
Of course they will. You know, let's be real. Even in this document, they were saying that, you know, Keir Starmer's turkey is stuffed. You know, the language is already hostile. They're like, you need us. And like, you know, this kind of, it's not, there's no partnership partnership here, and there never has been. You know, so many people in the United Kingdom have, like, kind of downplayed the hostility of the European Union in any negotiation that we've engaged with them. And yet the EU, in their right, have pushed forward to put forward their own agenda, and yet the UK has always taken a back step. It's about time that we had a Prime Minister at some point who decided maybe it's time that we put the British interests first. And this is, yet again, it just shows that even if we vote for something in this country, there's no guarantee that it'll stick. And this is a real problem of trust in our politics.
What I find very odd, we were talking to Mark Oaten, former chairman of the Liberal Democrats earlier on. Liberal Democrats were always anti-Brexit, always campaigned to get it changed, all the rest of it. Fair due to them. That's their view. Even he was saying, look, we either need to be in the EU or out of the EU, and not this sort of half measure, which this seems to be.
Yeah, we've always been known as the awkward partner. Even when we were part of the European Union, we had certain special privileges and certain deals that other countries never had. And, you know, we're either in it or we're out of it. And I've always believed that, and I've always respected Remainers, all people rejoiners who said, look, I want to rejoin the European Union. If you come out and say that, the British public will probably have a lot more respect for you than you saying one thing and then weaseling out of it in another way and trying to say, oh, it's just a technical skirting, or it's just a little detail here, a little change there. That infuriates people even more because it just shows that you're not being upfront and you're not being honest. And that is Keir Starmer through and through.
Could Keir Starmer bring about another referendum? No.
So this is the thing that that a lot of us have been looking at for some time, and that's what Keir Starmer's job in this particular Parliament is to bring the UK into alignment with the EU. So basically, whilst there are a lot of people say they want to rejoin, there's no appetite for another referendum. And that, if Keir Starmer pushes that too soon, there could be a bit of a backlash, and you would see Brexit probably kind of gain support. So what he's going to try and do is make us a member of the EU in everything but name. So if he does win again in the next general election, you might see one then. I don't see one in this Parliament, but there is a potential for one in the next Parliament.
What I don't understand, there's been a lot of talk of this survey which says the majority of people now want free movement. With the EU, with this country. Now, I find this quite difficult to get my head round, in that free movement and migration is still a huge issue for this country. So why is this survey, why are people supposedly saying, actually, no, we wouldn't mind a bit of free movement?
I think it's because there's always been this narrative that somehow you can't do something, that somehow you've had this right taken away. You can move to another country in the European Union. You can study in another country. You know, it's this idea and this narrative that has been pushed very effectively by more European Union-friendly outlets that, you know, that somehow that right has been taken away, and it's simply not true. So I think when people are asked, would you like that right back? You know, some people say, well, yeah, of course I would, despite the fact that all that's really happened is that you've had to fill out a couple of extra forms, and it's not as simple, there's no easy path. What I find interesting is on the student one, why the European Union has never pushed for this earlier to get your access to British universities, I've never really understood, because considering the fact that the EU doesn't even have a university in the top 10 in the world, and yet we've got quite a few. You know, there are certain areas where if I was a European Union citizen, I would be very much like, well, I want to get in there and get to Britain. You know, there is an argument there, but there is also another element of this. If we look at youth unemployment across the EU, that is very, very high. You know, I think it's nearly 25%, if I remember off the top of my head. You know, of people under the age of 30, like, not in any kind of education or employment. And, you know, if you start throwing in something like a student visa, and that's why it's up to 30 years old, they suddenly start to fiddle the statistics, and you can start to make your country look a lot better than it actually is, and performing better. You know, there's a lot of moving of the numbers on this. Yeah. Creative accounting, I think they call it.
Yeah, OK. Peter, good to see you. Thank you.
Christopher's been in touch. He said he's a barrister. When I trained to become a barrister, I was taught the principle of slowly, slowly catching monkey. Keir Starmer, a former barrister, appears to be using the same principle to get us back into the EU. You have been warned.
Well, look, there's a lot of questions about what's going on with the government at the moment, especially with what happened with the budget, and then, of course, the economy slowing for the second month in a row. As we got those results through yesterday. So in our poll of the day, we're asking, will the government's economic policy actually avoid recession? It's in question at the moment. We'll bring the results throughout the day. Final result in Nana's show later. And if you want to take part, gbnews.com/poll.
Now, it's easy to get caught up in festive cheer this time of the year, of course. But sometimes we might even forget the elderly in our communities who could be facing Christmas alone.
Well, Age UK wants to show support through their shoebox appeal. Our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has the story.
Supporting the elderly this Christmas. Age UK is spreading festive cheer with a shoebox. With help from the community, they're delivering these gift boxes to older people who might be alone this Christmas. The charity also offers a warm space, a crucial initiative for pensioners struggling with winter fuel bills.
They have to choose between eating or heating, and that is it's very real for some people. We've seen a gradual increase in people coming to our facility. It is a warm space and the doors are open 7 days a week to everyone. We're just about to start for those people who have pension credits or who have extreme difficulty, where they can come and have a free hot meal. And then for other people, we have free drinks or discounted food. But what we really want is people to come in, to be warm, to socialise and to feel valued.
The cafe here is also used as a space for pensioners to socialise. A veteran breakfast club is held every week for ex-forces members.
We've all served, and a lot of us miss what we did because we're no longer doing it. But it's a chance to meet up with people who've experienced the same as us and can relate to it. So I struggle to get around in the house, and I have to use a mobility scooter now to get around outside. So it's an opportunity to meet up with people, you know, and get out of the house, because if you stay in the house all day, you'd go absolutely crackers.
Retired volunteers also give their time here to help those in the community.
I just wanted to keep busy and also to keep your grey matter going. That type of thing. So yeah, it certainly does that.
You know, you've spoken to somebody who's been on their own. Mostly, you make friends with people, and the atmosphere is so nice because it becomes very friendly.
The shoebox appeal runs until mid-December, and it's a way to give back to the elderly this Christmas. Anna Riley, GB News, Darlington.
Well, Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody who wants to be... Sometimes some people say that they're happy on their own and not to feel sorry for them. Others don't want to be on their own, but whatever. I do hope your Christmas is a happy one.
The weather might not be so happy, though. Let's get the latest from Aidan.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Metal Vis for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days, it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, if you stick with us, there's a Grinch on the loose. Take a look at this.
Wow, some miserable devil cutting all the Christmas lights and
cutting
things in people's houses.
the wires.
It's a disgrace, so we're going to be looking at that in a bit more detail in a moment.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
The Oxford Union speech this week descended into chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a mood on university campuses that people don't realise. And by the way, it's not just confined to universities. I'm sure that the audience will recognise this mood, which is that if you fall out with the wrong people, you're under a huge amount of pressure to shut up or you will be kicked out of polite society. And on this instance, they put on a debate on Israel. Fair, both sides represented. But it was absolutely clear that the people who were asked to defend Israel and say that it wasn't an apartheid state, rather than being given the freedom and the time and so on that an Oxford Union very formal debate allowed you, were effectively being set up as the bad guys. They were treated abysmally. They were, in many instances, they were booed, but they were spat on.
Sworn at,
all of this. So you get the picture. But the main thing I would say is that usually if you're in an Oxford Union debate, there's students on one side of the debate in the audience and students on the other side. But in this instance, there was very few people on the side of those who were trying to defend Israel against these malign and malicious accusations. Why? Because of the intimidation outside and because of the general atmosphere that if you breach a certain code and are seen to be on the wrong side. Now imagine you're 18, 19, and if you are seen to even be listening to somebody who's pro-Israel, you will be cast as a pro-genocide bigot, you will be kicked out of your friendship groups, you'll be maligned with everything awful that's happened in Gaza, and some terrible things have happened in Gaza, by the way, but you won't even be able to ask a question of it.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:26 now. Police are on the hunt for some Scrooges, at least one, maybe more, ruining the festive season for some people in East Anglia.
Yeah, at least 5 cases of vandalised Christmas lights were reported last week. And police have said that the mindless act has brought distress and financial cost, of course, on the community. Suffolk police are urging the public to come forward with CCTV, if they've got it, or doorbell footage of the vandals.
Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, who's here. This is beyond miserable, Peter. I can't believe someone's doing this.
It certainly is at this time of the year. And there's a total of 11 crimes that happened overnight from the 5th to the 6th of December. So that's last Thursday into Friday. And they do have some snippets of CCTV, the police. And if you go to the Suffolk Police website, you can see what they've got. But of course, they'd like more. Now, I firmly believe that virtually every crime is solvable, but it all depends on the resources that you apply to it. Stephen Lance, the PC that seems to be heading up this investigation, I fear is probably doing this case on his own. But if you look at one still that's on the Suffolk website, it appears that one of the perpetrators is not wearing a glove as he reaches out towards some of these Christmas lights. So whether there's a forensic opportunity there or not, whether Suffolk Police will spend the money for a forensic examination, whether that was done or not, but it's very, very unseasonal. These crimes need to be solved, and if anybody can help, please contact Suffolk Police.
I mean, a lot of people might think, crumbs, there's only Christmas lights and what a big fuss, and maybe this isn't the thing that police should be spending their time and money on. On the other hand, if you're one of those residents, the idea that somebody is loitering around and then cutting the electricity to your lights and other things like that, it's very threatening behaviour too, isn't it?
It's concerning, and I don't want to darken the mood too much, but these people are seen creeping around on the outside of people's houses, and they're clearly going equipped with tools to be able to cut wires. And with so much crime that people might not think is serious, I never share that opinion about low level and petty and all of that. That's language I frankly cannot stand, because so often if people get away with crimes that might not be of a very significant value or might not attract a very serious criminal sanction, criminality can escalate. The offending can get worse.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's like that I mean, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but the old tale about, serial killers are often kill animals when they're children and all this sort of thing. So if someone's getting away with this sneaky, nasty behaviour, who knows what they might go on to do?
And on that serial killer note, many, many serial killers were known to be very cruel and kill animals when they were children. It's an early sign of something to be deeply concerned about. And people creeping alongside the outside wall of people's houses, interfering with things that are attached to their houses, makes me think, what next?
What next?
Yeah. Are you surprised that this is actually getting any attention at all? I mean, I'm a little bit... Thank heavens it is, and I think this is exactly what the police should be doing, but I'm almost a bit surprised in this day and age that it's got any attention at all.
I'm a subscriber to the broken windows theory, that if you deal with criminality that people don't think is serious, graffiti, criminal damage, antisocial behaviour, you can really nip in the bud a lot of criminality, and you can dissuade young people, foolish people, drunk people from committing other offences and more serious offences. Deal with the lower level stuff as much as you can, and when I say that, I mean the stuff that affects people's environments, their communities, and all that kind of criminality. And then so much of the bigger stuff, I think, can be prevented and people can be dissuaded from pursuing a life of crime.
Yeah. Is there any danger from what you've read that these... I said danger, but is there any thought that they're children, or that they are just gangs of youths who think it's funny, or that they're maybe filming themselves for a TikTok video or something?
No evidence of them filming themselves, but the CCTV footage that I've seen, these appear to be young male adults. That would appear to be quite clear.
Well, let's hope they are on TikTok or something, Peter, because you do get these people doing stuff on TikTok and posting it and then getting nabbed as a result.
Well, to see people arrested and thrown into the police station for this would be a Christmas cracker.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it?
Gentleman's been in touch saying, Peter, what's the cost for getting fingerprints and things? Is it an expensive process, or...?
Well, somebody's got to do it. So it's often the manpower that's as expensive as the actual procedure, because fingerprint powder, which is dusted onto something, is relatively inexpensive, lifting the print in itself and having it examined by somebody whose job it is to do that anyway. These people are in post. But so much forensic work has been outsourced by police services over the years, so they end up getting charged by a third-party supplier or provider of services. And that's why the police, unfortunately, have always got their eyes on budgets. In terms of a DNA sample, for example, if that was lifted and then sent to a laboratory for analysis, that would come at a greater cost.
But I guess the point is, if they think they've got the chaps or the people who did it, and they need to just prove that last proof, if they've already taken a fingerprint or something, that would clinch it.
And as I always say, what price justice?
Yeah. Peter, really good to see you. You'd be pleased to know everyone's agreeing with you and sort of saying, you know, this sort of thing needs to be properly looked at. And let's hope that whoever's doing it is caught rapidly. Thanks very much indeed.
OK, shall we do the Great British Giveaway now? It's worth a go because it's 50 grand now in tax-free cash. How to take part? Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joined by international life coach Cheryl Findlay, who has joined forces with a Liverpool business owner, Kate Hill, of sustainable sportswear brand Lola Star, to empower women and inspire women across the nation. And to celebrate this partnership with the new Lola Star collection, the two will be hosting an exclusive event next Saturday.
The sportswear brand was launched after, well, your story. You lost how much weight?
So 16 stone, which is over £220, which
wow.
I know is quite significant. But during that kind of decade-long journey, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful, to be happy, to be well, and to just live an incredible life every day.
Are you giving them goals to work towards or helping them structure their life?
Yeah, so I don't give out goals, absolutely not. It's all about whatever an individual wants. So what we do to begin with is we understand, like, where are you now? Where are you thriving? Where do you feel really happy and excited in your life? And what's lacking? Like, where would you like to feel better? Where would you like to improve? And then we take it from there.
So I'd love to take that on board. I'd love to be my true self and fulfil my potential. So have you got any practical tips on how to do that?
Yeah, so we start with clarity, right? Like, you need to know, it's such a busy, fast-paced world we live in. There's so much sensory overload. You know, it'd be so easy to be distracted. So we need to kind of quiet all that noise down and start with, where do I want to focus? Pick 2 or 3 things. Where do I want to focus? And then we define the goal. What would I like that area of my life to look, not just look like, but feel like? And then we take it from there. So that's where you would start. I actually had a cancer diagnosis in 2019.
Oh.
And I just decided if I was going to be lucky enough to be on the other side of it, I wasn't going to play small anymore.
GB News, the People's...
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:37. Let's have a look at the sport with Aidan. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Good old Luke Littler. What an impact he's having on the sport.
Well, he is. I mean, think about this time last year. He was an unknown. He was 16 years old. He won £10,000 to take himself into the Grand Slam of darts, and that earned him a place at the World Championships at Alexandra Palace in London. He got all the way to the final, if we remember, and it was a very close run thing against Luke Humphries, his great rival, in the final. Now, it's difficult to describe what's happened to darts in that intervening 12 months, because it was already on an upward slope. It was already very popular, but a friend of mine who works at the tournament said that ticket sales are up 83% year on year because of Luke Littler's involvement. He's on the backboards of Have I Got News For You, even though he wasn't aware of what the programme was, which is quite interesting. £600,000 he's won in prize money over the course of the year. He's going to be 18 in January. The World Championship starts tomorrow. He gets a bye, or not a bye, I suppose, but he doesn't have to compete in the first round owing to his seeding, so he doesn't start until next Saturday. But Luke Humphries is in action tomorrow to kick things off. He's the title winner, but rarely ever seen somebody that age make that kind of impact on a sport. As I said, things were generally going upward for the sport. It was in the doldrums back in the 90s and early 2000s, as I recall. But I remember covering it over at the Circus Tavern, a very small venue over in Essex, and maybe 20 years ago, and they moved it to Ali Pali, and I said to them, I don't think you're going to do this because you're going to lose the pub atmosphere. So they went from probably about 800 to 1,200 capacity to around about 6,000 at Ali Pali. They're now saying that they've outgrown the Alexandra Palace. Who knows? Could it become an outdoor sport in a stadium?
Outdoor sport?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. It's been mooted. It's one of a number of options. One thing's for certain is that they need a bigger venue because they just simply cannot satisfy demand. I was at a charity ball a couple of weeks ago, and a friend of mine just, sort of in an impromptu fashion, got up and auctioned 2 tickets for the darts. And he put a reserve price on them of about £100 each. Within less than a minute, he had £1,000.
Isn't that amazing?
It's absolutely
So it's coming back in a big way?
Yeah, I think it was on its way anyway, but sometimes you just need something to push it over the line. And he's captured the imagination like nobody else.
I was going to say, he's certainly captured the imagination. He's going to become a bigger star than he is now.
Yes.
Has he got... I mean, I haven't seen him interviewed. Is he...
He's lovely. Yeah, he is, yeah. He looks and sounds a lot older than he actually is.
Yeah.
He's an outsider to win BBC Sports Personality of the Year, which is taking place on a Tuesday for the first time.
Like donkeys. To win that.
I know. I don't think he's going to win it. I mean, darts players have been in the frame previously, and
but he almost deserves to for what he's doing to the game.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, he's got this strong competition. Keely Hodgkinson, Jude Bellingham, Joe Root, Alex Yee. They're all in amongst it as well. But as I say, I'm not sure the prestige is quite where it was, because if it's been relegated to a Tuesday night, I'm not sure about that. But nonetheless, it makes it interesting for the next few weeks, and it goes on until the new year. He seems
like a really nice young man.
Yes.
I think that's the key to it all, rather than being a spoiled brat.
Didn't he go somewhere recently and take his mum with him or something?
Oh, that's... Yeah.
And when they do that, you think, oh, he's a nice guy.
What's happening in the football today?
So, we've got some interesting going. The big feast is tomorrow, Man United against Man City, as we covered earlier on. But Arsenal and Liverpool in action today. If Liverpool win today, they're 10 points clear of Manchester City, having played the same number of games. That puts the pressure on City tomorrow, although some would consider City are not really in the title race right now because they're 7 points off, but I'm not sure about that. I think they'll get a couple of players back and ease Pep Guardiola's digestion problems and any other issues he's got going on relating to the stress of managing a football team. Forest in action against Aston Villa today at 5:30, and as I say, Chelsea, Man City and United tomorrow. Chelsea in action tomorrow as well, so it promises to be a decent game, and we'll be reflecting on all of that tomorrow on The Breakfast Show.
Lovely stuff, Aidan. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I have a quick update on the cricket?
Go on.
New Zealand all out at the moment on 319 for 9. So England well in command to secure a whitewash down in Hamilton in the third Test, day 1.
Good. Be nice to see, wouldn't it? Right, Aidan. Thanks very much indeed. We've got the papers heading away. Just a minute.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Robert Walton has been jet-setting in recent weeks in Singapore for the YYY Awards and then back to London to host the inaugural Restaurant Association Awards.
Yep, and after many years in the industry, Robert also knows a thing or two about how to create the perfect Christmas. And it's all in the preparation. So we're going to be asking him about that as well. I'm delighted to say that the godfather of hospitality, Robert Walton, MBE, joins us now on the sofa.
Morning, Robert.
Robert,
Good
so
morning.
good to see you. And what a busy few weeks you have had. Should we start with the YYY Awards?
Yeah.
Because I think it's just wonderful who you celebrated at those awards.
So, the YYY, young chef, young waiter, young mixologist. And it's a competition that's created around the world. So people from all around the world can apply. So this year we had 9 countries, from India to the Caribbean, from the USA to Scotland and England. And so we had 27 young professionals. The average age was about 24.
Wow.
All coming to Singapore. So we flew everyone to Singapore. We create what I call the Olympic Village. We create a little village for them, and it's in a very cool spot with great bars. And then we have the competition. And this year, I can now announce, I was here just a few weeks ago before we had the competition, that the USA won, which was absolutely incredible. Thailand was second. And gorgeous Wales was third.
Yes. Well done, Wales.
Well done, Wales.
We now expect to have a good meal. There's no reason why you shouldn't have good food. The key now is the service, because there's no reason why you don't have good service. And good service is not that difficult. Smile, to start with. It really isn't that difficult. It's called hospitable. We call the industry, or the sector we look after is the hospitality industry, which is all about being hospitable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the papers at 8:44 with Claire Pearsall and Andy Jones. Morning, you two.
Morning.
Claire, Telegraph, Brexit. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
You only have to say that.
At Christmas, Brexit.
I bet it is. I bet it should be banned in my house as well. This is no surprise, is it, that Keir Starmer wants closer ties with the European Union? He's always wanted them. And it's going to become ever more apparent that he will bend over backwards to sign on the dotted line, because I cannot see in any of these leaked documents what benefit there is to the United Kingdom.
Well, why would he be doing it if it wasn't?
Because I think he's concerned about Donald Trump and his presidency starting next year with what's going to happen trade-wise. He's also much more comfortable dealing with EU leaders, and it is easier to go and negotiate when you're just going to give stuff away. And that's all I can see that he's willing to do, is allow youth schemes to come in. There aren't really youth schemes if they go up to the age of 30.
But if there's concern about what President Trump is going to do, why aren't we working to get closer to President Trump?
Well, that's what I would be asking as well, because surely it is in our own interest to go and work out with Donald Trump how best the two countries can work together, what trade deals you're going to have to ensure that you don't have tariffs on goods and services. Surely that would be a first conversation with that kind of economy.
It's significantly harder to build bridges with Donald Trump when your own Foreign Secretary's called him a Nazi and a fascist and all sorts. He's going to protest in the street and he's akin to the Ku Klux Klan and all sorts of things. But the interesting thing about about this EU deal, as Claire's intimated there, is that there's not actually lots in it for us in terms of this specific... There are advantages of rejoining the EU in certain ways, but this specific thing that's on the table, this will allow freedom of movement for students and young people under 30. Well, if you're a young person, you think, well, I'd quite like to live in Spain, Italy, wherever... You might think that's good, but actually unemployment on the continent for young people is at record levels. Spain, young unemployment under 30 is 25%, Sweden it's 20%, Portugal it's 20%, Italy it's similar numbers. If you're a young person in the UK trying to get a job here, it's very difficult. Trying to get one abroad is even harder, particularly if you don't speak the language. What that means is young people from abroad, and we already have lots of young men of a certain age in this country who are struggling to get jobs from abroad. We're now going to get even more from the EU coming over looking for jobs here, and it's going to make those starter jobs even harder to get. It's going to make those no-contract minimum wage jobs even harder to get, poorer paid, poorer conditions. National insurance hikes have already gone up, meaning employers have to pay more, and it's going to get more expensive, and there's going to be less and less jobs. And even the fishing thing, we're not getting very much out of this either. I mean, they want to fish in our waters, but I'm not sure that we get a significant benefit the other way.
Well, a lot of
it doesn't feel like a great deal.
They feel he might have sold out the farmers and now he's going to sell out the fishermen.
And I think they're right to be concerned. We've seen how easily he's done that to the farmers. I think that fishing rights should be protected in this country, and he just doesn't seem to understand how much money that brings in, what it does for the job market around those ports which rely upon it, and also just the food process in this country. If you're looking at food security, surely you would want to ensure that your quotas were better for your own people.
What I don't get, and a lot of people say, I mean, he's an intelligent man, clearly. Why is he not seeing that? I mean, is he just sort of simply following a sort of socialist agenda here and is blind to some of the facts that you're saying are standing out?
I think there's a big loss of... I mean, look, the Conservatives weren't very good either, but there's a big miss in business acumen in this cabinet. There aren't many of them that have run a business. They're from administrative backgrounds, they're from political backgrounds. Everything is about dogma, about slogans. It's about liberal slogans rather than liberal values. It's about slogans and economic slogans rather than what's actually good for the economy. You see this with the private schools thing. Many people are absolutely on board with it, I understand. They bring the measures in January. What an awful thing to do in the middle of the school year. And suddenly a lot of parents are having to move their kids mid-term. It's just not joined-up thinking. EV vehicles, again, they're saying go electric, go electric, go electric. They whack a £600 a year charge on going electric. There's nowhere to charge your car if you've got an e-vehicle outside of London. No joined-up thinking.
I think it's ideology more than anything else. And Andy's right. There are very few people that have run a business who are in the cabinet at the moment. Very few people who have actually worked in other industries other than politics. So they don't have that understanding. But I think Labour as a whole have an ideology of what something should be and how right they are to pursue it, that takes precedent over the detail of the actual problem in front of them.
OK, let's have a look at it's the smart gadgets, Andy. This is in the eye. It's what they call the Internet of Things, all these interconnected devices.
Yeah, it basically means anything that's attached to your Wi-Fi. And so this could be smart televisions that now rely on the internet, so you can watch YouTube as well as watching BBC or GB News even. And also, smart oven. You've got the Christmas dinner all ready to go, you're entertaining guests, you don't want to have to keep getting up and down. Press the button on your phone, suddenly the roast potatoes are doing. Absolutely fabulous. We all like this sort of thing.
I was going to say, I've missed out, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem is you are allowing these devices to connect all together. That's what's called the Internet of Things, all these things connected together. And actually, they can be hacked and share your data in lots of ways that you didn't necessarily know. Not just how often you might have roast potatoes, for instance. There was actually a case in Las Vegas around 7-8 years ago where a huge casino, which had wealthy individuals coming in using their bank details, hackers were able to hack into a goldfish tank which was attached to the internet, so they could independently monitor the temperature of the water to look after the fish, so people don't have to constantly look after it. They're able to hack into the fish tank and then attempt to hack into the private bank details. And so you'd think when you apply that across your home, you've got all of these devices, most of which have got pretty lame security, whether it's your vacuum, whether it's your robot vacuum, whether it's your smart oven, whether it's all these other things. These are all almost like leaving an open window in your home. These are all potentially hackable.
It's air fryers, particularly, where they've pointed the finger out, haven't they? Apparently, smart air fryers can harvest a lot of data of yours.
And I suppose...
Goodness knows what about, but...
Well, I suppose if you're using an air fryer...
No clothes on, what I'm saying.
Is this a thing that we should know about?
Well, no, just if they're all spying on you, make sure you've got your dress.
Well, I
You don't
think
get these fat spattered on you if you're cooking with no clothes with an air fryer.
But you don't get that with an air fryer. But I think if you're having conversations around your air fryer, I mean, in my house, it would be very, very dull. I don't think anybody would find out anything massively interesting.
Or you could find one day that when you're applying for health insurance, the data comes back that you actually cooked too many chips.
Mm-hmm.
Or something. I mean, one day you never know. It's science fiction.
But I'm still amazed by the smart oven. I have a smart speaker in the house, and I think that's probably about the only intelligent thing that we have, including us, in the entire house.
I've got smart central heating as well that I can control.
See, I don't know, because I like to be able to turn it on and turn it off myself.
But you are turning it on and turning it off yourself at the moment.
Currently.
But even the police are using this information to decide whether or not you were in the house. You can provide you an alibi or harm an alibi because it shows you weren't in or you were in at that different time. You actually see a lot of criminal cases. There was a gang shooting in the northwest where they're actually able to spot his tracking device on his phone to see what time of day he ran at, and it proved that he was in the area at the time of the shooting. All of these micro data is potentially useful for private companies and criminal
There was a
prosecutions.
murder case as well where they were able to tell the time of the lady's death from her watch.
Yes, her smartwatch, yes, because
which is very important to catching the criminal. God.
See, it's all
out there, isn't it?
It's a lot. It's smart devices, and they're smarter than us.
Talking about smart things, in the Mirror, apparently we're going to have smart QR codes instead of barcodes by 2030.
And I kind of think it's inevitable that the technology is going to move on to that. And we saw the rise of QR codes during the pandemic, from everything from health reasons to restaurants and cafes where you could book or download menus. So I don't think it's a surprise, really. It's just what other data is collected when you scan into a QR code. I suppose you need to understand the technology behind it. You need to understand the companies that are going to, again, harvest data behind the scenes. But arguably, all of these shops that you go to, all of the restaurants have your details on file. You know, supermarkets know exactly what you buy and when.
That would be
it is no different.
You order something in a restaurant and the waiter says, well, actually, I happen to know you have...
A week last Tuesday. Yes. Yes, or you've ordered that previously and you didn't like it, which would be very helpful.
These things will happen. How long have we got? We've only got 20 seconds, so that's it. We're out of time.
But because it means that we run out of... They could use less staff, because you use a QR code instead of having a waiter and the food is then brought to you and it has less interaction. So it's saving them money. They can also offer you more market information. Win-win for retailers. Don't know if it's a win for us.
No. OK, thanks both very much indeed. Here's the weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days, it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's good luck. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
That's 16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24.
100%.
Not working.
Work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, Carol Malone. I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, you are absolutely right. She said, I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school.
Yeah.
She said, he hasn't worked a day.
No.
And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
That's all he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulating.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about...
Well, I know that. I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free month on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week. And it's,
how much for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5. Yeah.
Well, better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book? Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. MI5 investigates Prince Andrew's links to China.
After the Duke allegedly received money from sources linked to a potential Communist Party spy.
Well, questions intensify as to the extent of their friendship, some worrying the spy had access to other members of the royal family.
The Home Secretary is travelling to Italy to discuss curbing illegal migration after the European nation successfully slashed small boat numbers.
Leaked documents reveal the EU is demanding Keir Starmer surrenders UK fishing rights as part of a post-Brexit trade deal.
And there's a Suffolk Scrooge on the loose. A manhunt is underway after vandals tear down Christmas decorations in East Anglia.
Christmas countdown is on for fans of Gavin and Stacey.
I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering. I really didn't. You're damaging my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there.
After a gloomy few days in the south and the east, much brighter weather turns up later today. The same can't be said towards the northwest. Full details on the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Right, we're going to crack on with Prince Andrew first thing, because Chinese money linked to Prince Andrew is under investigation by MI5 as more details emerge about the Duke's connection to an alleged spy.
It's believed that Prince Andrew invited the man in question, described as a close confidant, to Buckingham Palace, with their relationship reportedly dating back to 2012.
Well, Andrew has said he's ceased all contact with the businessman in question and says they never discussed anything of a sensitive nature.
Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace have claimed that they have no power to scrutinise the Duke's finances.
Well, earlier we spoke to former Defence Minister Tobias Ellwood.
Is what China does, and it's very, very good at it. This is called grey zone warfare, seeking opportunities, looking for vulnerabilities to gain privileged or indeed restricted access at the highest levels. Their mission is twofold. Firstly, to promote a softer, more positive image of China, and secondly, to exploit and seek opportunities for coercion, espionage, intellectual property theft, causing deniable economic harm and sowing political discord, getting us all talking about these things. It's actually no surprise, I'm afraid, that Prince Andrew, given what's happened to him with all his royal household support that might have arguably better advised him, has gone, was targeted in this way. And I'm sure that there'll be questions asked about that. My takeaway is that this is a big geopolitical concern, the absence of a clear strategy. And it's absolutely right that we look further, that MI5 investigates to see where else China might have exploited opportunities in this very same way.
Yes, I mean, a lot of people are getting in touch and saying, why would they be remotely interested in Prince Andrew? What would he know that would be of any use to them? But it's the fact that you're saying that it's infiltration of everything. We're just hearing about Prince Andrew.
Absolutely right. And you're correct. Prince Andrew, per se, might have been cut off. He still has contacts. He's still involved in a certain sense. He can still make other introductions. But it isn't the fact that, oh, let's not do Prince Andrew. They'll do everybody that they can, hoping that something might produce something. That's the Chinese approach here. And that's what, as I say, we need to be concerned about. That is this grey zone war. I can't stress it more, of how authoritarian states that wish us harm will cause us harm from afar. It's very, very easy to do, particularly with the digital domain as well. But vulnerable people in our society could be targeted in this way. But also you could be making errors without even realizing it, because our clarity of what to do about China. We know that they are rising. We know that they're becoming more assertive, but we also feel obliged to trade with them because they are so powerful. And we need to clarify how we stand up to China in a way that doesn't lead to conflict, or in a way that does allow us to trade, but in a safe way to secure our infrastructures, to secure our economy.
Well, in response, the office of Prince Andrew said the Duke of York followed advice from His Majesty's government, ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels. Nothing of a sensitive nature was discussed. He can't comment further on national security.
Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy here in the UK said some individuals in the UK are always eager to fabricate baseless spy stories targeting China. Their purpose is to smear China and disrupt normal exchanges between Chinese and British personnel.
Well, to go from that to someone who's being a real Scrooge in Suffolk, police on the hunt for some awful people, actually, who, frankly, are ruining Christmas for people across East Anglia.
At least 5 cases of vandalised Christmas lights were reported last week. And police say the mindless act has actually brought a lot of distress and, of course, financial cost on the community. Suffolk police are urging the public to come forward with CCTV or doorbell footage of the vandals.
Former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley is here. We've had a number of people get in touch, Peter, saying, well, haven't the police got anything better to do than chase down people who are cutting off Christmas lights?
I'm a firm believer that if the crimes that some people might regard as minor, I don't, if they are investigated thoroughly, and people are held to account for their actions, that can do so much for a community and the country in a wider sense, in that it will prevent crime. It will make people think twice about committing an act of antisocial behaviour, for example, or criminal damage, or graffiti and the such like. If you can nip those kind of crimes in the bud, it makes communities look better, feel better, and it's what the police, in some regards, should be doing.
It isn't trivial, is it, really? Because, as we see in the video footage, these are men, young adult males, it is thought, who are creeping up outside people's houses at a particular time of year, are carrying out something which is deeply unkind, and I would have thought rather threatening.
I'd be very, very concerned about anybody who deliberately trespasses onto the property of another person, creeps around the building line, and then commits criminal damage to their Christmas lights. My concern would be, if somebody's brazen enough to do that, will their offending escalate? What other types of crime might these people be committing? Which is why I, if I was still serving, would be very keen to arrest them, get them in a police station and interview them.
Yeah, as you say, it's what happens next if they get away with this. There's been also, it's a different matter, Peter, but there's been this new survey out today. Apparently, more than 50% of us now are in favour of ID cards.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
Well, this is a survey conducted by The Times as part of their Crime and Justice Commission, apparently. And interestingly, they also asked people about their political allegiances. Which party did they vote for, or would they vote for? And across the board, on all major parties, there was support for a national ID card system. The police, of course, I'm sure, would be very, very appreciative of such a system, and I think the sooner, the better.
Now, the traditional argument against is that why should I give up my privacy to prove anything about myself, that I'm a British citizen? The onus should be on the person, the suspect or whatever, to prove that they have the right to be here too. But it hasn't worked, has it?
We had nearly 1 million people come into the country in the last year that we know of. We have boats rocking up on our shores on an almost daily basis with people who are undocumented, come from countries that we can only hazard a guess at, potentially, and we have no idea whether they have a criminal background or not.
And some of them do.
Indeed. I think the civil libertarian arguments against an ID card have largely gone out of the window. I was in Italy not long ago, where it's compulsory, as it is across all major European countries, and people actually embrace carrying their card because it helps them with doctor's appointments, other medical treatments, accessing public transport, buying tickets and the such like.
Does it help keep crime down?
I think it would do. I think it would also help detect crime, potentially, particularly if the card contained a chip which might be able to track people's movements. Now, I understand that might be a step too far. I think I can see you balking at that possible idea.
Our mobile phones do that anyway.
They do. And, of course, we have biometric data in passports. Our mobile phones, it's like having a tag, really, because we carry them in our pockets or our bags, and they track our movements as well. With so many people in the country who we simply don't know who they are, I think a national ID card would be a great idea, but it needs to be supported by the proper legislation.
Yeah.
For example, what powers would the police have? Would they be able to stop you and demand to see your ID, or would they need reasonable cause to do that?
Yeah, OK. Peter, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Let us know what you think about an ID card. gbnews.com/yoursay. For or against, it's a mixed bag coming through. Philip says, just a second, said, well, give me an ID card. Why don't we have a national referendum on it? Waste of money. They should just get on with it.
Another referendum.
No, I can't take another referendum. But, you know, there you go. John Smith isn't too keen on it all, but there you go. All coming through now, so keep those thoughts coming through. We'll review them in the next couple of minutes.
Right now, it's just coming up to 11 minutes past 9. Let's get the weather for you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Metal Vis for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining, though, for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland, it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, now it's time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to become our biggest ever winner, because there's 50 grand in tax-free cash up for you to win, maybe. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Yeah, best of luck to you. Now, still to come, the Home Secretaries in Italy after they successfully slashed small boat arrivals. Are we there to learn a thing or two? We'll talk about it next.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And the latest series of Big Brother has just wrapped up. And as always, the housemates managed to cause a stir.
Yeah, that's an understatement. After 5 weeks of drama and twists and turns, 6 housemates were left to battle out battle it out rather, for a £90,000 prize.
Well, our next guest was there to the bitter end, coming third in this year's competition.
6 weeks you were in there.
Oh, I tell you what, it was a long time.
What goes through your mind? Is it, do you start to go a bit sort of, what do they call it, cabin fever?
Yeah.
Do you go a bit nutty?
Literally, like at times, not that I've ever been in prison, but I kind of likened it to being in jail, particularly when we were having to eat the porridge with water, no sugar, or, you know, that was difficult. And the feeling that you just can't leave. I mean, you can, but, you know, it was, yeah.
You can, but you won't get your hands on that prize money.
No, exactly.
You made it to the end.
Yeah.
And it's quite a big house, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you feel as though you can get away from housemates if they're annoying you a bit, or does it feel like your hot house with people you don't like very much?
If you're sort of, you know, if you're not comfortable with a certain conversation or something like that, you can always take yourself and move away. But can you have time to yourself? No. Not really. I mean, even you might think, do you know what, I'll just go and lock myself in the toilet for a few minutes. There's a camera and there's a mic in there, so you can't escape that. And then you're obviously wearing a mic, so there is that little feeling of, you know, I could just do with having 5 minutes to myself, but you can't really get it.
You've met up with one side of the house, but not the other side yet. But is that still on the cards, do you think?
I hope so, yeah, because I liked every single person in that house, despite a few whispers on the internet, you know, like, do you not like this? I liked everybody in the house, never had a bad word with anybody, so...
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9:18 now. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is going to meet her Italian counterpart today to discuss illegal migration.
Over here, small boats crossings are almost 20% higher than this time last year. Over 600 people made the journey across the Channel just on Thursday.
Let's talk to political strategist Peter Barnes. Good to see you, Peter.
Nice to see you again.
What is she going to learn from Italy?
Well, hopefully how to control illegal migration, considering Italy seems to have a much better grasp on this than we do. I mean, like you've just said, we're now up to 35,500. That's 19% increase on 2023. On Thursday, it was 609 people. And the cost per asylum seeker has been worked out to be over £41,000 per annum. That in 2019, that cost was just £17,000. You know, this is a real crisis at the heart of the government, and it is affecting every single sector of our society, and they are completely MIA. Yvette Cooper, who is she? Where's she gone? Like, she is nowhere on this issue, and it wasn't even one of Keir Starmer's big milestones.
Well, no,
but that's even talk about.
He hasn't even mentioned it, I think, since he became Prime Minister.
I mean, no, because he's terrified of talking about it, because his rhetoric...
But at least her going to Italy is acknowledging that there is something
I think because they've got to seem to be doing something, because this smash the gangs rhetoric is hardly doing anything. I think we've had one guy, you know, he was selling a couple of these dinghies. But, I mean, even on the first day that Matthew Hewitt, this kind of new border command guy, he was fourth in line, by the way, you know, his first thing was the smash the gangs thing, it's not going to work. On the first press conference, he just undermined the government massively. But, you know, the reality is, if you want to stop this crisis, you've got to stop the pull factors. That's what, you know, and even European leaders are saying this, you know. You roll up here and you get a red carpet welcome. Everything is given to you. I mean, you even get put up in a castle. The hotel bill is £8 million a day. That is absolutely astronomical. And legal aid is about to be increased if you're an asylum seeker by Shabnam Mahmood, the Justice Secretary. We're just throwing money after money after money. And this is why you end up with cuts to things like the winter fuel allowance. I thought
that whether it would smash the gangs would work or not, they were going into it with the best intentions. Have I been a bit stupid?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to focus on the criminal gang element of this. But whilst you kind of tackle it upstream, you've got to tackle it downstream as well. And the government have just ignored this sector because they still think that the country wants this kind of everybody, you know, refugees welcome here and all that kind of thing. We're starting to see the real cost of this stuff. And, you know, like every year, the asylum, this crisis, £5 billion. It's with a big billion. I mean, and that's only increasing. You know, the Calais Group, which is the UK, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and those all get together and say, we're all going to sort this out. And then nothing happens. This is the thing. We're all having all these meetings and all these nice boardrooms all around Europe, but yet this crisis is continuing because the UK government is inept, or I think they're just trying to normalise this. I think they're just allowing this to happen now because they just don't have a plan. And so what they're going to do is they're just going to make it seem like an everyday occurrence. So eventually people just kind of stop caring. But I don't think that plan is ever going to work. Yvette Cooper is so out of her depth here.
People aren't going to stop caring because you can actually physically see the hotels in which illegal migrants are being, and in, as you said, in one case, at least a castle. I read today about it, this enormous manor house that is being taken over and illegal migrants put in, making the owners incredibly rich, by the way, and we're paying the bill. So unless you smash, prosecuting a gang leader doesn't wreck the business model, does it? Because somebody else will simply step in and do the job that he was doing.
Because this is the point. As long as you have the pull factors, people will always try to come here. We have no deterrent. Not really to stop people coming here. As long as people want to come here, there will be the criminal element that will capitalise on this. And there are organisations that are making billions of pounds out of this human trafficking trade, and that's what it is. And we have to be realistic about it, that the UK is complicit in this because of the pull factors, because we roll out the red carpet. On the Home Office website itself, it says what you get as an asylum seeker. That is literally the title of the page, what you get. And how can you say that we're taking this issue seriously, that we've got to stop this issue, you know, start putting British interests first, if that is the attitude that we have?
How worried will the government be? How impacted will they be from January the 20th? Because when Donald Trump takes office, and we know this is one of the issues in the States he's determined to take action on pretty quickly. Well, if he manages to crack it, and it's going to be tough, you know, it's going to be hard line on it. But it is going to leave a lot of people in this country saying, well, if he can do that, why can't we?
Yeah, definitely. This is a big fear, I would imagine, at number 10, because it could have their entire narrative just completely blown up. I mean, they've had for a long time, say, it's people fleeing wars and it's, you know, it's mothers and children and all this kind of stuff. And each one has just been blown out of the water time after time. But you're right, if Donald Trump is able to actually get a grip on this issue, and I think he probably will, because he will be a firm hand, there will be cries out in this country for, why can't we do it? And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing this kind of renegotiation, this kind of realignment with the European Union now, because they want to keep Britain as close to the EU as possible to keep this narrative going, because whilst we've got the problem here of the migration crisis, other countries in Europe have it as well, and they want to start sharing the migrants around. They call it irregular migration. Read illegal migration, and that's what this is.
But unlike some other European countries, we have a left-wing government in at the moment. Are they, I mean, you suggested that maybe they're just allowing it to happen so that we'll just shrug our shoulders and it'll become the norm? Or is it a sort of socialist ideal that they believe in migration and they believe in open-arm welcomes to absolutely anybody who wants to come here?
I think there is definitely an element of that, but there's also the fact that many of these people are addicted to cheap labour. You know, if you look at the company, the people that will benefit mainly from this are organisations like Deliveroo, where, you know, they just feed right into it. You know, they kind of like do takeaway markets and all the rest of it. It's cheap labour and it's crushing the kind of wage growth and all the rest of it. You know, economically, they're addicted to it. And I do think there is an element of they want to be seen to be doing the right thing, but they're just hooked on it. And unfortunately, we have to get off it.
But that requires the people who are shouting the loudest for this all to be stopped and all the rest of it, there's got to be an acknowledgement then that actually some things which some people have become very reliant on or very used to are going to either stop or cost us more money. There's going to be a cost to this.
Oh, yes, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. It's one reason I've always been very sceptical of everybody that has just been saying, oh, we pull out of the ECHR, then this problem's solved. I was like, Not at all. This is a very complex problem, not just in terms of the criminality aspect, but in terms of our economy. We are addicted to it, and we need to be able to separate ourselves out. We need to realign our education system so that we can fill the skills gap that will be left after this. There's a whole raft of issues that isn't really being discussed because we just keep focusing on the small boats. Because let's not forget, we also have a legal migration problem, which has skyrocketed out of control. You know, the Office of National Statistics doesn't even know how many people are here, and they're calling for an emergency census at one point. This is a crisis beyond a crisis, because, again, it is showing the ineptitude of the state to actually get to grips with an issue that is rippling out of control. And, unfortunately, that ripple has turned into a tsunami.
If it's legal migration, then why don't we know where they are and how many there are?
Because that would require competency. We have an Office of National Statistics that can't count. Let's not forget that they went on strike because they were supposed to go back to the office for 2 days a week. You know, at some point we have to start saying, are the people in charge of these organisations actually running the departments actually competent at their jobs? We keep blaming the government for a lot of this, but let's not forget the civil service plays a huge role in the management of this. And yet, can you tell me anybody that's been fired from the Home Office since this crisis began?
Well, there's been very little focus actually on the fact when these new figures came out, which were up to June 23 or something, wasn't it? And you know, very nearly 1 million net migration. But that was a reassessment of the figures that suddenly decided there were 200,000 more people in the country than they'd previously thought.
I know, it's crazy. Like, we just don't know how many people are here. Like, our infrastructure is crumbling. Like, you know, our schools, the NHS, everything is falling apart around us because at the very core of it, we have a state that does not have control at all. The government does not have control. The civil service does not have control of any of these issues. And it's getting so out of control now that I do think that you might be right, Stephen, that this kind of more firm hand that, you know, Donald Trump is expected to take will be required more than requested because it has to stop. Because, like I said, $5 billion a year at the moment, if it continues, God knows how much this could cost. It could cost more than we spend on education, and that would just be crazy.
So this is what worries me, because a lot of people will say, and there's got to be an element of thoughtfulness, of kindness, of you know, we've got international commitments and all the rest of it, and those people who really want to pursue that, well, all fair play. But even those people who are really in favour of that are reaching a point now where they're saying, but the country is falling apart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at the winter fuel allowance as a prime example.
Exactly,
This is about choices. And the government is choosing to allow this to happen. That's the one thing we have to remember. They're choosing for this to happen. They could quite easily get a grip of this if they wanted to and if they actually put some focus and effort into it. And they're choosing not to.
But sorry, I keep interrupting. But isn't part of the issue with that, if they did that, then even if the majority of the country wanted it, they're going to end up looking more right-wing than the Tories, in effect.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, that's probably, in terms of them probably seeking re-election, which they desperately need something to grip onto, getting to grips with this crisis could possibly be it, because they're not going to get it on the economy or jobs or anything like that. But if they can actually say, turn just one boat back, that could change a lot for the Keir Starmer administration.
Isn't it? I mean, anyone clever would actually identify something that we can do and can fix. And it may well be, as you said, the other things you mentioned are unfixable within 5 years.
Well, most of them are unfixable because they might have already been broken, but Starmer came along and jumped up and down on them. But, I mean, we're looking at Keir Starmer, you know, who cancelled the Rwanda plan on the first day. And yet, despite the fact that now you've got most of the European nations looking like it might be a good idea, and even the Americans are getting involved. And then, more insultingly, using the thing that the British taxpayer built.
Yes.
I mean, it's just... that entire situation shows the amateur level of Keir Starmer and why we're in this trouble.
Peter, good to talk to you. You can take a breath now. Well, yeah, I do think it's fascinating what's going to happen with Trump, and whether you're a fan of Trump or, I have to keep saying, if you're a fan of Trump or not, if this is an issue that he manages to solve in the States, then
everybody will look to it.
Huge can of worms for people over here who aren't acting on it.
And especially if we have a government which is sort of almost choosing not to have a good relationship with him.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Peter also mentioned the economy in all of this. Well, that's our poll of the day today. Will the government's economic policy avoid recession? We've had 2 successive months of well, negative growth.
Negative, actually.
Yeah, so this is what you've said so far. 98% of you think the Chancellor's plans won't work. 2% think they will. We'll have the final result, if my chair stops going down, in Nana's show later on. And if you want to have your say, go to gbnews.com/poll.
I'm growing.
I am actually smaller than you now. Here we go. Get that.
Oh, dear.
These chairs.
OK, so during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, it's not so far away now, we're hearing from church ministers across the country. So each day they've got a special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 14.
My name's Marcus. I'm a priest in the Church of England. Have you ever experienced one bad thing after another in a very short space of time? Maybe the car breaks down, then your washing machine breaks down, then you get sick, then you find out your loved one has been diagnosed with cancer, and so on and so on. When you think life could get harder, it gets harder. It will be easy to despair and lose hope and see these bad things as a sign that God is against you. But this time of Christmas, we are reminded that God came down in the person of Jesus Christ to suffer with us and for us. It is a sign that tells us that God is for us and not against us. It tells us that nothing can separate us from the love of God. God hasn't promised to give us an easy life on earth, but He has promised to be with us through all the good and the bad in life, to be our strength, to be our peace, and to be our joy through it all. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
Well, you can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by visiting gbnews.com/Advent.
Still to come, and it's nothing to do with what Christmas is all about, but Gavin and Stacey are back on Christmas Day. We'll get all the inside scoop next.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Last orders at the bar, and I'm joined by Geordie Shore star Ricky Guanaccio. Have I said that right? Is that Italian?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is Italian? Your parents Italian? Is it?
Pronunciation was pretty much perfect.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, look, mate, Geordie Shore, I've never watched it, mate, so I do apologise about that. But I know these reality TV shows are making big stars out of the people, making you famous, making you loads of money. Is it worth it?
For me personally, yeah. It's been a hell of a career. Been a hell of a lot of fun doing it, ups and downs, but first and foremost, money-wise, yeah.
That's good. So people stopping in the street, you being famous, wanting the autograph and all. How did you cope with that, Ricky?
Well, when we first started doing the show, I mean, we got our show off the back of Jersey Shore in America. We never expected the fame that we got, and, you know, being one of the biggest reality TV shows in the UK and now the world, you know, it's in 150-odd countries worldwide. Wow. It's pretty crazy. It's when you're living in houses. I mean, for example, Geordie Shore and Love Island's probably the same as well. When you're living in villas and you're living in houses, the arguing side sort of plays on your mind. You've got to deal with all that. You know, it's a hard place to be. It's a pressure cooker.
You're living in one of these villas, Ricky, or one of these houses. Do you ever wake up one morning and think, "What am I doing here?"
When I first started, yes. Yeah. Now I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't mind all the, you know, there's no emotion connecting me now with film, and it's kind of like I go in there, it's fun, or it's, you know, it's dramatic, whatever it may be.
Have you ever worked behind a bar?
No.
No?
Yeah, for not a long period of time. My mum and dad had a...
Well, I can
definitely mess this one up.
Yeah, I can actually believe that you've never worked behind a bar.
Yeah, so my parents sacked us when I worked in the restaurant.
Well, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't get a job here with a pint like that, would you?
Do you want it?
No, mate, no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
"9:35 now. One of the nation's favourite sitcoms, Gavin and Stacey, is back for the very last time on Christmas Day.
Fans have been treated to a special preview of this episode, so let's take a quick look.
Right, that's your lot. You'll have to walk the rest. Mini golf that way, Marco's over there.
Is there any way we could be done?
No, I'm done. That'll be 75 quid.
What? But we've only been on a couple of minutes.
Oh, love. I'm just speaking my truth. I find your abusive tone very triggering.
I really didn't.
You're damaging my mental health. Now, if I was you, I'd leave it there. You got Apple Pay? I got Bluetooth in my bra.
Well, I like the attitude, don't you?
Ooh, feisty. Stephanie Tetchy's here. Good morning. I can imagine you doing that.
I think I would, actually. I've already got the leather coat, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, I think we should all take a leaf out of her book.
I think we should. And I think this is what people are going to want to watch on Christmas Day. You know, usually when it comes to cliffhangers, most TV fans have to wait maybe a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Gavin and Stacey, we've waited 5 years to see what happened. In the last episode, Ruth Jones's character proposed to James Corden's character. We don't know if he said yes or not.
So that's been a cliffhanger for all this time.
5 years, and it is going to be the big finale. They say it's the last ever episode of Gavin and Stacey. I always do feel like there is room for more.
Yeah.
But James Corden has said that this is going to be a culmination of a love story that has spanned 20 years. But he said things are not going to go the way people think it will.
Well, no, they can't make it soppy, can they?
No, I don't think there is. And apparently there could be a death.
Oh.
I think will be awful.
Very
Christmas
EastEnders.
Day. Yeah.
You want to be one of the older characters then, because you're going to get bumped off.
Or it could be one of the prominent ones, so that you can really end the show off in that way. But I think them doing this is they know they're going to be able to pull the viewers in. The last time it was almost 12 million viewers watched it, which was the biggest viewing in a decade for a non-sporting event, and that is the power of Gavin and Stacey.
Now, it seems to me it's a bit Marmite, Gavin and Stacey. Yeah. Because we've had an awful lot of emails in from people watching at the moment saying it's not big in our household.
Yeah.
We won't be watching. So, and yet there is an enormous viewership. So it is Marmitey.
I think you're right. It is like Marmite. I think it either has a cult fan base where you've watched it from the start because the episodes go back to 2007, or you get people who have just bought into the hype and they're dipping in and out. But when I think about traditional British sitcoms, they are dying in that sense. So I think viewers are looking at other things. But if you do like Gavin and Stacey, it's definitely going to be at the top of the list.
What's the inside goss on James Corden, he's a bit of a controversial character, but Matthew Horn, because there was all this rumour of a falling out.
There is, because, you know, over the past few years, James Corden went to Hollywood and he became a celebrity in his own right. But actually, Matthew Horn, there was always rumours that they had falling out behind the scenes, and that's why we've had to wait so long for a Gavin and Stacey reunion. But Matthew Horn has done an interview in The Times this week, and he said, actually, there was no falling out.
Now, hang on, Matthew Horn plays...
Gavin. He plays Gavin.
He's Gavin.
Yeah. So he said there was no falling out between them, but I think he's lying. I think over the years there have been many reports about James Corden really stalling this reunion.
Well, James Corden isn't that easy to get on with by the sound of it.
He's not.
Although I have to say, I think he's immensely talented.
Well, do you know what I find with most of these comedy-like characters? When they're on screen, they have the ability to make people laugh, but when you meet a lot of these people in real life, they're quite stern, and I've tried very many years to crack James Corden, and it just doesn't happen. person with him. So.
Really?
But maybe he knows that the magic he does is for Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I always felt a bit sorry for Matthew Horn because, I mean, they did a sitcom, they did. There was like they did like the Corden and Horn show or something, which didn't go down very well.
Yeah.
But then obviously James Corden's gone on to do these great things, and Matthew Horn, after his stint on with Nan on Catherine Tate, seemed to sort of just vanish a little bit.
That tends to happen. There's always the breakout star in that sense, but I think you always get that one who wins the audience's hearts, and I think that's what Matthew Horn's done. People love him and his character, but he just hasn't had the same success as James Corden, unfortunately.
All right, so for the sake of our viewers who aren't terribly keen on Gavin and Stacey, are there any other big blockbuster shows to look out for?
Oh, I haven't prepared that yet, but I know it will be all about the soaps, though.
Yes,
it's always on Xmas Day. It's always going to be the big cliffhangers on EastEnders, maybe Coronation Street. So those are the big ones. But I really miss Top of the Pops. That was always a good one to watch to find out who would be like Christmas #1. So I miss that stuff. But yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out on this.
Yeah, stuff like that. You know, it's the traditional stuff. There's going to be a Doctor Who. I don't know. I don't know if one's. I don't know when that's being broadcast. I don't know if it's a Christmas. Oh, it is a Christmas Day.
Have you watched any of the latest?
Yes.
Oh, you have.
Yeah. There were 1 or 2 episodes that were weak. But actually, by the time I got back into it, it was... he's very good, is Shooty.
Oh, well, OK. Oh, he is, actually. I think there was a bit of controversy when he did start because they thought that they were just ticking a box by getting a black Doctor Who. But actually, he really stands on his own 2 feet and he's done really well.
Well, it's very different, but which you sort of rally against a little bit. But actually, the best ones have always been a bit different, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
So it brings a different dimension to it all.
Regenerates. He has to be different.
So I've been impressed.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I've been impressed. I've liked him.
Do you know what I'm really looking forward to the most? The King's Speech. Because it's been a year for the royal family.
Hasn't it?
Yes.
I wonder what he's going to talk about.
He's probably already recorded it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will have
done,
They
usually do.
And then there's Catherine's Christmas
Carol.
Carol concert.
That'll be nice.
Another one.
Yeah. And then, of course, on Christmas Day morning, we won't be here.
No, we will not.
But we will be on air because Emily and Patrick will be here. The golden couple, just married, as
Take
it
them
were.
on for the team.
Yeah, I know. It'll be lovely to see them.
And they're doing Boxing Day as well.
They do. Oh, that's no way to spend Christmas when you've just got married, is it, really? But there you go.
Anyway...
That's their devotion to GB News.
Well, good on them. Good on them.
Still send Christmas cards.
Yes.
I was meant to bring your cards in today, and then I was reading something in the newspaper that said people don't send Christmas cards anymore.
Well, everybody
it's a shame.
Everybody on the panel yesterday was saying, no, we don't send them, and we don't get any.
I feel silly for sending them now.
Well, you don't get them if you don't send them.
Well, this is it. And we send plenty, and every day the box has got loads of Christmas cards in it.
I
get
love
loads.
sending Christmas cards. I feel silly giving them out now.
No, they're a lovely thing.
Yeah, I'll keep on giving out.
Well, it's before Christmas. It's after Christmas when you've still got a pile that you've got to send.
No one doesn't give cards anymore, so you hand them to people and like, oh, I gave one to someone and she just chucked it at the side.
She didn't.
She did. She did. She nearly left it in the restaurant.
Name and shame. Name and shame.
No, she knows who she is.
But once upon a time, that's the garland you used to hang up in the house, isn't it? You know, a piece of string, and then you put all the cards on top.
What do you mean, once upon a time?
Once upon a time. Well, I haven't had that many for a long time.
We've got them all down the doors and things. Yeah.
Popular. Yeah, I saw the one Noddy sent you guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, got the noddy holder. I mean, this is still something we can't quite get our heads around in the Dixon household, is when you get a Christmas card from Noddy Holder. Yeah. And Susan, we should point out. But this one's just Noddy on the front.
Are you still waiting for Charles and Camilla's?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yes, we haven't had one from the King yet this year.
Just in case they're watching, get a move on.
Do you get one because you've, like...
OB'd.
Yeah, you've been OB'd.
No, I don't think so. I haven't checked the post box, but I wouldn't have thought so.
Normally, I get one from the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Oh.
We do normally get one from the Prime Minister. This year, I'm not expecting one from the Prime Minister.
I wonder why.
So we shall see.
Can't even get them on GB News, can you? Let alone get them to sign a card.
No. Be asking to. Gordon Brown used to send one.
Well, Gordon Brown was unusually friendly to everybody, wasn't he? Yeah.
But anyway.
Apart from that bigoted woman.
Oh,
Sorry, didn't mean to mention that, Gordon.
Right, Stephanie, thank you very much indeed.
Right, we've got some breaking news now. It's very nearly 9:45. The South Korean president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has vowed to not give up after their parliament voted to impeach him. And that's after he declared martial law and put the whole country in a spin last week.
Yeah, this is live pictures actually on your screens at the moment of protesters, anti-president protesters, who are celebrating the fact that this impeachment vote has gone through. So he's now suspended. There is going to be about 6 weeks before there is the final vote on whether or not he will be fully removed from power. I mean, if that happens, he's out. But at the moment, he's suspended and
he's vowed to stay on.
Well, he's going to fight it.
Yeah.
Which I'm very surprised at. That's not normally what happens in places like South Korea.
But anything can happen in 6 weeks, can't it, really?
We shall see. But anyway, the crowd's very happy at what has happened there.
But who will they get instead? That's the point.
Yeah.
Anyway, do stay with us. Still to come, find out what's coming up in Saturday Morning Live with Ben and Ellie. They'll be coming in just a couple of moments.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars, so it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight. I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But I mean, give us a flavour of the two different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would just love to get to the Football League. So teams like Salford, Stockport County were in our division a couple of years ago, all flying now in the Football League. We just want to do the same. We sat down with the board last year and they told us the vision for the future, and that vision most definitely is that we want to be a Football League club. When we went to the Premier League, I know the boys have been saying that they 30 years will be in the Premier League and winning it. Well, let's hope we are, and let's hope I'm still around to see that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very much like I'm not supposed to.
Right, Ellie Costello and Ben Leo are going to be here at 10 o'clock.
It's all go here.
Morning Live. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
Morning.
Ben, you look nice, Ellie. Oh, wow.
Sorry.
I feel like a bit of a granddad next to Sparkly Ellie in my cosy jumper.
I look like I'm off to a cocktail party, and I have been told it doesn't look very good on the telly. Apparently it's strobing, so apologies.
Oh, you look great.
Great. Well, sorry.
No, you look wonderful. You really do. And it is Christmas coming.
Well,
by the way.
Maybe I should get
the
some tinsel and wrap it around my neck.
That'll...
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
My microphone's gone. My battery's gone.
Oh, I thought you wanted to get closer to my
No,
jacket.
I don't. So I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, you can say.
We've got a really busy show coming up.
Good. You've got to do all the talking because Stephen can't.
Yes, well, we've got lots to tell you. We're talking about diamonds because lots of Christmas and New Year engagements coming up. So
is that why you wore that?
Yeah, I'm dressed like a diamond.
To sparkle like the diamonds?
Yes, yes. So we're going to be talking to Neil Duxton. He is the king of diamonds, bringing loads of diamonds into the studio.
What, real ones?
Real ones,
nice.
worth millions and trillions.
I might stick around.
I think you should. I really think you should. Also, 2025 is meant to be the year of the coloured diamond.
They always try this, though, pink diamonds and blue diamonds.
And yellow diamonds.
Yeah.
Well, Neil has a great story about Donald Trump. Apparently, he wanted to buy a very large orange Bobby Dazzler, but was gazumped by a fellow billionaire. The orange to represent Mar-a-Lago, Florida, the Sunshine State.
Tough life, isn't it?
I know, for the billionaires.
I can't help wondering, when this now trend towards coloured diamonds, whether it's just because, they've got some naff diamonds and they just want to sort of palm them off on you by pretending they're special.
Good question. We'll save that for Neil.
Rare. Maybe they're rare.
Ask that for Neil, yeah.
Elsewhere, we have, I'm particularly looking forward to a male hairstylist, Adam Uygur, he grew up on a hazelnut farm or a site in Turkey, and he's made all these amazing products with hazelnuts, and also Christmas burnouts.
It's a real thing, festive burnout.
Hold on. I've got a new battery.
Oh no!
So hold on. You said you're very excited about a hairstylist.
He's very excited
because he makes things out of hazelnuts.
Yes, he grew up on a Turkish hazelnut farm.
What's this got to do with hair?
Well, he makes these hair products and skin products out of hazelnuts.
Oh, I see. You didn't say that.
Didn't explain myself, Steve.
I was trying to connect the dots and I couldn't.
He makes natural products. It's meant to be very good for your hair.
Is it really?
And Ben's excited because he's on a hair journey, aren't you?
Yes.
You're on what?
He's going for a south of France longer look, aren't you?
Working on a yacht or a boat. No, I'm just trying to grow my hair out a little bit.
Don't get me started.
I like your hair the way it is.
Do you know what, though? I found my first grey hair last week.
Yeah, no, I actually was watching the television when you did.
Where was
and I
it?
thought, this is ridiculous.
What's ridiculous? I found my first grey hair.
Getting all upset over a grey hair.
I wasn't upset. I'm ageing quite gracefully, but...
In fact, Isabel, who was sitting next to you, reckoned
You're only
that you had more than
23.
Oh, I wish. Plus another 12.
Yeah. So we'll be talking to Adam about Ben's hair. And festive burnout, because it's a thing. We're all trying to do our normal jobs, and then we're also preparing for Christmas and going to Christmas parties and wrapping presents and buying presents. It's all too much.
And also why Christmas is particularly hard for people suffering from grief, or they've lost a loved one, or they're lonely. Loneliness, of course, is a massive thing.
Oh, and it's last week of term for lots of children. Oh, yes. So we are going to be helping you out with last-minute gifts for teachers. And some homemade gifts as well.
Homemade gifts are better for teachers.
We always used to do that as children. We used to make biscuits and then wrap them up in cellophane and a ribbon.
Yeah. I don't think they ever get eaten, though.
No. I don't think they will.
I doubt they would.
Let's be honest.
No.
Don't you just bung them a voucher?
Well, you could do.
That's what they want.
Amazon vouchers.
It's thoughtless.
But I don't think they want all these fancy homemade things. They just want the Wonga, Stephen.
Yeah, they do. The best thing you can buy a teacher is a coffee gift card. You know, put £20 on a coffee gift card at coffee shops, whatever chain you like.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then that would do them throughout the year. Yeah. And it won't go to waste and it will get used.
It's 20 quid, that's a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money, is it, for a teacher who's looked after your child all year?
No, but it is if you've got a couple of kids and you've got to spend 40 quid on coffee.
Business being a parent.
It's about 3 coffees in London.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
We never got our teacher anything. I don't remember ever buying anything.
Did you not make homemade gifts?
No, I don't think. Mind you, my mum was a teacher, so did all her colleagues. I mean,
it's quite a good debate, actually. I've bought my son's tennis coach a gift as well.
Tennis. I thought you were the tennis coach.
Well, I tried to be. I just shout from the sidelines.
It's very pushing.
It sounds terribly middle class, doesn't it? My son's tennis coach.
Yes, it does.
It does, doesn't it? I'm afraid. Very good, though. Very good.
But yeah, how far do you extend the gifts? Do you buy your taxi driver a gift?
I don't know. It's mad, doesn't it?
And what did you do?
What did you? I bought gifts, yeah. Or we made a few, but I'm sure we made fairy cake, little cakes and muffin cakes and biscuits, and I'm sure they never got eaten because why would you? You wouldn't eat something some sort of snotty-nosed child has just given you, would you? Mm.
Anyway, Merry Christmas, everybody. Right, we'll see you soon in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Here's the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Metalvis for GB News. A brighter day for many of us, particularly towards the south and the east. Still some showers, particularly towards the west, and increasingly cloudy and wet in western Scotland. Later, that's the rain that's heading towards Scotland from the Atlantic. But for the time being, after a cloudy start, actually it does turn sunnier into the afternoon across the south and the east. A much brighter picture compared with recent days. But cloud returns to the north and the west. A few showers initially, then longer spells of rain into western Scotland. Still a relatively cold day for many, but with the sunshine in the south and the east at least feeling a little more cheerful. And over the next few days it's going to turn very mild. And that's because we've got Atlantic weather returning, and the sign of that there across Scotland manifesting itself as persistent rain, turning increasingly heavy overnight and into Sunday and Monday. Northern Ireland also seeing those spells of rain move in by the evening. Clouds spilling into central and northern parts of England as well as parts of West Wales. Clear spells remaining though for the south and southeast overnight, and a breeze picking up across all parts, that breeze coming from the west, and it's going to push damp weather into western parts of the UK from basically South Wales northwards. So a mild night with the cloud and that mild breeze coming in from the west. Temperatures dipping to 4 or 5 Celsius in the southeast, double figures in the northwest. But across western Scotland it is turning increasingly wet, with that rain just continuing through the second half of the weekend, along with a strong and gusty wind for northern parts of the country. A lot of cloud on Sunday, 1 or 2 spots of rain in the south, but the wettest weather will always be in the northwest of Scotland, where a rain warning is in effect from Sunday evening.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And good luck. Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Locals in Abingdon in Oxfordshire have signed a petition to keep the name of their local pub, and it's called The Midget. Now, this comes after a university lecturer led an 11-month campaign to change the name of the pub, and the owners, Green King, have caved in. But locals are fighting back, and GB News spoke to one resident, Leanne Thompson, for her thoughts earlier today.
I'm not feeling great about it, to be honest. You know, it's a pub that's been here for a very long time. It's called The Midget after a MG car, and they're changing it to the Roaring Raindrop, which a lot of people are not happy about. We know why they're changing it, but a lady apparently came in who was very upset at the offensive term for the name midget. But nobody here sees it as an offensive term. You don't see the midget and feel any kind of offence towards that. It's named after a car. If she was to actually come, she might actually know more about it, but apparently she's not even been into the pub. She's just heard about it and broadcast it on social media.